Welcome to the Daily Wrap-Up, a concise show dedicated to bringing you the most relevant, independent news as we see it from the last 24 hours. Sunday, July 14th, 2024. Thank you for joining me today. Definitely important follow-up. Now, I spent, unfortunately, some of last night as well, and all day up until this point for the show today, doing my best to break down everything that we have so far around the attempted assassination of Donald Trump and the perspectives, opinions, theories around all of what's going on, questions about validity, as we see in just about every event that seems to be important. Now, there's a lot to cover in this, a lot of varying opinions, a lot of partisanship. But I'll tell you right now, and I'll say up front that, you know, I am always somebody, and I said this in yesterday's show, it is always okay, despite what all the screaming people and the partisanship, and I'm really more so the mainstream part of it would tell you, it's always okay to question these events. It's always okay to ask questions, whether or not you have evidence to support those questions. I would argue, I would argue it's not okay to jump out and say you know something when you can't prove it. That's my opinion. Of course, you have every right to do that. That's called free speech. But my point is that there's a line there where simply going, could this have been a faked event? Could this have been used by them to promote their campaign? Could this have been an act by a foreign entity? Could this have been an assassination by our own government? Could this have been partisanship and, you know, Democrats trying to take them out? I mean, yes, you can ask those questions, whether or not there's evidence to back it up, because that's just being curious. That's what investigation is. It starts with an interest in something and a question about what happened. But if you don't have facts or evidence to back it up, then that's where you leave it, that it's a question. It could be. Now, a lot of what's going on today, and again, with every event, there's people that are either jumping in because they see an opportunity to benefit themselves, to scream a narrative that benefits them personally, a lot of which has already been deleted. Some of the stuff we went over yesterday, and very clearly cautioning that this was, you know, showing things that were popping up at the moment that we weren't buying into it at that time. A lot of it's been deleted now. And that's always how this tends to go, with most of them not caring to follow up on that and say, oops, I made a mistake. Just falling into the next narrative that they want to push. Other people are pushing things that benefit the parties. It's about the Republican Party, right? Or about the Democrat Party, where you're fighting Trump or supporting Biden or whatever, and pushing narratives that support that. Then you've got the other government level people that are pushing this, and we need to fight against, we need to initiate gun control measures, and we see that happening from Biden, or, we always see these narratives, and a lot of that is driven by their agenda, if not all of it, whether or not what they're saying is actually backed up by the facts. And this is always what you'll see. There's always people jumping in to take advantage of a large event like this. So keeping all of that in mind, yes, we'll ask these questions, but I also want to point out that I am always resistant to the immediate jump to point these things out as a fact. Like I said before, I'm not the person that jumps in and says false flag, fake event, psychological operation without knowing that, or at least believing that the evidence points in that direction. And even then I would say, I believe the evidence suggests this. I would not say I know that's happening. The reason I'm saying that is because there are a lot of things that I'm going to cover right now that I find to be kind of indisputably incongruent, which doesn't mean that there proves this was fake or so on, but that there's something missing here, or at least the narrative we're being told in multiple points I'll show you, I'm just going to go ahead and say can't be true, at least based on what we currently have in front of us. And the only reason I'm saying that is because there's obvious inconsistencies with where these shooters were, if that's actually what happened, inconsistencies with who they're saying the shooter was, even at this current moment. It seems to be disputed, even at mainstream levels. We have information about where the snipers were on Trump's side that don't seem to line up with what things were aimed at, or the fact that they were clearly able to see that location. I mean, it could simply point to the fact that there was some kind of internal act to take out Donald Trump. That's not that far-fetched. We've seen this in our history. Or it could mean a number of the other things already listed off, that this was a manufactured event to benefit somebody in particular. But I think very clearly, or again, just to be clear, or it could just be somebody who randomly decided to try and shoot Donald Trump. But if that's the case, there's a lot that doesn't really add up with that. And then on top of that, we need to highlight the fact that if that's the truth, why that would happen. And there is no getting away from the fact that if you're calling this person the living embodiment of Hitler, a person who's going to destroy democracy, that's radicalization right there. You would literally, you could see a logical drive to push somebody to take an action that would be violent. And again, I would still put the onus on the person that took action and not the media screaming false information. But it's still important to highlight that they're doing that, as that's always what they put on us. So today we are going to go through multiple angles of this. We're going to start with the kind of flagrant misinformation from yesterday reasonably quickly, just to show you that a lot of these central players, and at this moment, mostly on the right, you'll see it everywhere, but depending on what the narrative mostly supports, or at this point, it's Trump that was shot at, and so that's going to be a really, important to the Republican side of the conversation. You see a lot of people jumping out, as I said, putting out false things, and then not addressing that. I think it's important because they're still a lot of the ones leading the conversation now in these spaces, projecting all these conversation narratives, and yet they've already been shown to have been at least irresponsible with what they claimed happened, and not like we think, but saying, this is the guy, and then deleting the tweet. That's important to see. And of course, even corporate media, or even usually corporate media as well. Trump fell on the stage and they jumped on like ridiculous things. And I mean, at the earliest moment this was happening, you could tell that this was not Trump tripping on stage. And yet that's actually what CNN put out first. Washington Post arguing, some loud noises and, like really weird ways they covered this, which now they've changed their headlines, but showing you how easy media in general, independent, mainstream alternative media, corporate people lie. That's just the reality. Now, we're also going to talk about the story itself. And I mean, like, just from the core information. That's why I framed it the way we did today. Let's review the facts. Let's look at what we can prove. And of course, I'm going to include my opinions around this, and in some cases theorize about how this might make sense, but I'm always very clear when I'm doing that. But I'm going to try to hold back my opinion other than the moments where I think it's important to connect dots. And I'm sure I'll slip away and do that. I'm going to try as we go through, because I really want this to stick to what we can see in the evidence we have in front of us, and to break this down to make this very objective. But the information around this story and the timelines and the different videos, there's some very inconsistent information in regard for the testimony we got from the side of people that were there, that saw the person. We went over most of this yesterday, which I'll highlight that show when we start. It was kind of inconsistent and all over the show because it happened right as we went live. We might have very well been one of the very first people live talking about this, only because as my literal intro was playing, somebody in the chat said this. I happened to look for it really quickly. And at that point, there wasn't even mainstream articles about it. Just happened to find a video online that we jumped right into. And so like the very first thing in the show was, I think Trump was shot. So it's an interesting timing of it all, just coincidentally. Then we're going to get into, of course, the conversation of the person, or the allegations around who this person is, Matthew Cook or somebody else. There's all these different narratives flying around, discussions about explosives apparently now being found in this person's car. But there's a lot of dispute around, there's even people arguing there's more than one shooter. I mean, this is the kind of stuff we see every single time, but we shouldn't be dismissing or blindly accepting any of this stuff. And I think the inconsistencies around the person is really striking to me, and we'll get to that as well. And then, of course, the interesting partisanship around it, and the many people, in fact, people that I highly respect, coming out and arguing point blank that they think this was a staged event or possibly fake. I'm not sure if I'm leaning that direction, but I think it's important that we don't dismiss these things. And then, of course, I want to discuss toward the end different, as we pointed out, Biden arguing this means we should remove, go after AR rifle, guns in general for the most part, but then the different types they always try to aim at first and bring it down. And even highlighting that Trump a while back made points about taking things first, worrying about constitutional later, like just showing you that it seems to be a government thing in that direction, but also overlapping with some Israel conversation, and really just how absurd it is that you have all these politicians coming out and saying, oh, I hope the best for Trump, even though 30 seconds ago they were calling him Hitler. That doesn't really mean the same. It's all show when it comes to these political standings. And then, of course, the overlap with Israel, while a lot of this is getting ignored, even the Israeli politicians coming out and saying, oh, there's no room for political violence, as they literally murdered children with bombs in regard to political violence. Now, a lot more we'll get into. Different partisan perspectives as well, but let's follow through this, do our best to remain objective and not allow emotions to dictate this conversation. Now, I wanted to start with the show from yesterday, just so you guys can see it. I asked Jason, I don't know if he'll get to it right away, to kind of try to break down what we went over yesterday, because a lot of these clips that are circulating now is like, which I always love, Loomer and the rest, exclusive. Even though we were talking about it last night, a lot of them love to do that. Breaking news, the new thing no one's talked about, even though a lot of people already have. A lot of this stuff is on the show. It's kind of throughout the show. It wasn't as long as usual, but there's a lot in there that you can see. And, interesting things. We'll try to touch on all of it today, but there's a lot of real-time kind of thoughts and comparisons that are hard to reproduce. So in that, hopefully you'll take time to look through, but also don't miss the conversation here, which is interesting. This is going to get buried along with a lot of other things by this conversation. This really weird overlap with the Global Alliance for Responsible Media and this whole presentation at Congress and Ben Shapiro and Elon Musk going, yeah, we should fight them, and pointing at GARM that Twitter just recently realigned with. It's this absurd dynamic that I don't see any conservative commentators pointing it out unless I'm missing it, and please tell me. It seems really strange to me that they can be highlighting this as the biggest problem for conservatives, and on July 1st, Twitter realigned themselves as a partner of GARM, which is the World Economic Forum flagship product. And yet we have Ben Shapiro calling it the problem, Elon Musk saying, yes, I agree, and yet round and round it go. It doesn't make any sense. So don't miss that. It's a very fascinating and just alarming conversation. But again, we go over a lot of other stuff in this as well. Now, the first point about the misinformation from yesterday, and I first just want to highlight what Matt Taibbi said, because I agree with this. And this is the thing that a lot of people that aren't pulled into this two-party game or the culture politics of it all, which is not just a left-wing thing. Clearly, the right plays just as much of a part of this kind of woke culture war concept. They just play it from a different angle. The point is that Matt Taibbi simply said, and this was yesterday, clearly, I think, in my opinion, at least referencing what's going on, he says, I just want information, but every channel is culture war. And he's not wrong. You try to look in, and this is why it's important to have discernment, and just, you look at all forms of information. You look at corporate media too, and just pepper it with the reality. Well, they lie about a lot of stuff. They constantly misinform. Or and I'm talking about mainstream. In this case, if you're looking at all these independent channels, a lot of them are very partisan. You have to just accept the fact that they're going to omit things that aren't within their narratives, and maybe they don't even realize they're doing it. But he's not wrong. Every channel, like most of them, I should say, are really, you know what it is? It's because that is an easy way to benefit. And I'm not saying they do that because of that, but it's almost subconscious that you fall into the crowds, the partisanship, the paradigm, and you clearly get patted on the head for it. You know why people who are nonpartisan and very objective get boxed out of this, because that is what it's the antidotes to the illusion, guys. And so my point is that all these channels, they fall into the culture war of it all, right? Trump's the biggest hero of our time. I mean, really, guys? Like, you can believe he might be the best president for the next step, not even to get into all the lies around it all, but to just, it's the same equivalent to me of lionizing someone like John McCain after they die, which we all should make fun of because the guy was a monster like most of them are, including Trump, by the way. So now all of a sudden, because he gets shot at, the guy's this living hero, and this is the most iconic time of our time. I mean, it's actually kind of ridiculous. Now, I certainly could be wrong about Trump, but to this jump to make this monumental thing, it's clearly about the culture war. It's clearly about promoting their agendas and so on. That's not even to get into the shooting itself and what actually happened, but just realize how kind of almost sinister a lot of this is. And for those of us just trying to find the facts, it's more difficult than I've ever seen it in at least my time doing this right now. So here's what we saw yesterday. We were looking at this live. So it's being sent to me. A lot of them have already deleted their tweets without even pointing to that. Clown World shared this breaking, and it's none of this is shared as this is a potential, or some of them were, but the ones that were like this were very clearly like the police have arrested this guy, which didn't happen, not as far as I can tell. Identified as Mark Violets, a known Antifa extremist. He uploaded a video on YouTube before the attack claiming justice was coming. Now, I think there is a video that I saw circulating. It's not worth getting into because it doesn't appear to be the guy, but he's simply saying something about it, but it doesn't seem to be related to Trump. It might appear that way if you think this was the guy. And who knows, maybe it'll swing back around and it turns out this was the guy. But the point is, they didn't know that. They claimed it was the case at a time when they certainly couldn't have known that. This is what we need to be on guard with. It's not just Republicans or left. It's people who want to be first. This is a common tactic. And by the way, they have a right to do it. No way should this be the argument that they should be censored because they're spreading misinformation, whether they have a blue check or not. They have a right to say what they want or think or lie to you. That's called free speech. We just have to accept that reality and be adults about it and move forward knowing that might be happening. It's called discernment. The people out there that want to pretend like you should be, just know that if you go this way and Twitter or elsewhere and the blue check, that means it's going to be verified information. I mean, it's just the most childish thing in the world, wildly naive. as if somebody couldn't then, within the official status, use that trust to mislead you. I mean, even they know that. It's just about agendas. My point is, be careful. There's a lot of people out there knowingly and unknowingly misleading you. Here's and she deleted it. Son of a gun. I knew it. I knew I should have grabbed this. So here's what's funny. That was Laura Loomer. She deleted her tweet. Let me see if I can grab it. Perfect point for the show. I just wish I would have grabbed it. It was live 10 seconds ago. And you know what I will do? I'm going to grab the show really quickly from yesterday if I can't bring this up, because this is an important point. And I'm telling you, this is like so funny that I make such a point about her, because she's such an egregious example. Like Matt Wallace, the rest of these people that are like knowingly grifting and manipulating you, and even worse, in fact, maybe they don't even know that. And that's how bad they are. But there's a lot of them out there that are just the worst examples. I mean, they are everything that the media points at and pretends that we are. And still, I argue they have a right to do what they're doing. It's called free speech. But let's do this. I'm going to grab this because I want to make this point. Here's our show from yesterday. It's just hilarious to me. Oops, that's not the one. I had to add Trump shot there because I want people to know that we were talking about this. Okay. So, yes, he's like right when we started the show, it was like somebody was telling me this, and it's kind of like a disjointed show for that reason, but I thought it was important to make sure we were covering this. So what basically we're going to show you is that the clip that was shared was, well, it was Loomer pretending that the person that was shot in the crowd was the shooter and presenting it as such. And that was not the case, at least as there is right there. Here we go. Hold on. Get to it. I thought it was. Shoot. Yeah, it's right there. So it was a clip of a person right here. There it is. So it says, watch, law enforcement neutralize the shooter at the Trump rally who just tried to assassinate Trump. Shooter believed to be dead. Now, what she's doing is acting on half information and trying to make it appear as if she's breaking a story, when the point was that's coming from corporate media. They're reporting, or at least the police level, saying that they got the shooter, right? Which is apparently the story. But at the time, that video she's showing of the person being dragged, which I'll show you right now, I just want to make sure you saw that was what she was posting, which she's now deleted, which means she's well aware that it was false. Here's the video that was being shown.
And we're not sure exactly where those shots came from at this point. We're trying to figure it out. But to hear that and then see the president fall down there on that stage, I can't put into words how shocking it was to the people.
Okay, so this person in the stands is the person they saw. And you'll see it. They pick him up by his arm, and clearly the person's dead. And they're kind of carrying him away. Now, this will be more, remember this, because this becomes very relevant to when I get into the angles of the shots and what we're talking about here. Because frankly, this does not add up. If the person was shooting from where they claim that guy was, and we know the sniper from Trump's side was on his side, which I'll show you all this if you're not know what I'm talking about. If something doesn't add up, if he was shot in the ear while he's facing the other direction, I'll show you what I mean. It just doesn't make any sense. And so if this guy got shot, then that would mean that the guy was shooting from the roof that they claim. But Laura shared this as if this guy was the shooter.
If you're okay, what's going on? Was he shot? Was he wounded? Then we heard him on the microphone, Shannon, saying...
There he is. So you can see right there, he kind of grabs him by his arm, and they're kind of like dragging this guy's body out of there.
Saying, let me grab my shoes, as they tried to take him off. So we're just trying to figure out what happened.
That's the gist of it, right? So again, the point is incomplete information, trying to jump the gun and make it look like you broke a story, when the reality is you don't know what's going on. Great journalism, guys. So I recommend people doing this, you just make sure you notate that and do not rely on their fake journalism going forward. These people with million-plus followers, right? Now, this is the same conversation, and this is what we kept seeing, this guy, and this one even deleted it. Where it was, I think, yeah, see, they're all just deleting their tweets now, right? Jeez, it's so frustrating. So this was, I actually just popped up really quickly. You saw it right there. This was the OAN overlap, where they were still, to this day, even though they edited the tweet away from this, which is the one they were pointing to, they edited it to say, no, now it's not that picture, but it is Mark Violets. But no, apparently it's not. And they're all deleting the tweets. Even now, even the last hour, this has all been changing, which is why I'm frustrated, because these were there 30 seconds ago. Should have grabbed them. But here is Wall Street Silver doing the same thing. Mark Violets. And there's a Laura Loomer. Oh, this is actually the tweet I was talking about. Developing Butler Police mark violence as the shooter. That's OAN, Channel Orion. Laura Loomer retweeted it, right? They're all just, it's this circle of partisan misleading, partisan, and that, like, obviously this is incorrect information, but what I'm looking for is like, the word I'm looking for. It's definitely grifting in my mind, like just kind of everyone high-fiving around a certain circle of information, and no one's even choosing to verify this stuff. They're just pointing at what they think is happening. And because this account said it, well, then Laura's going to share it because she said it must be true. And then Wall Street Silver, and just goes around and round and round with none of them actually taking the time to go, well, is that actually true? Where is that coming from? What's the source behind that? Journalism. And then here's New York Post. And this is what it said yesterday. And I showed you this live on the show. What's funny about this is we were talking about this at the time when Mark Vilas' thing was being shown to be false. And we're going, but they said it was a Chinese man. So that's not even a Chinese man. But again, even then I said, well, let's be careful because that could still be incorrect information. And guess what? Here they are updating their post. Guess what? Shooter identified as only as a white male. Okay. Look, that's the same paragraph. They didn't change anything but the Chinese man to white man. Look. And guess what? New York Post didn't notate that anywhere. There's not an asterisk, except now, I've shown you this many times now. That's what they do now on all these platforms. They just put a thing that says updated July 13th, and nowhere does it notate what they changed. That's not how that's supposed to work. That is a violation of journalistic integrity. You're supposed to be very clearly notating here at the bottom is usually what I would do with an asterisk and say, this has now been changed to notate this and blah, blah, blah. Nope, they just go updated, and that means they can change whatever they want going forward as many times as they want. Hey, it's been updated. That's ridiculous, guys. It's ridiculous. Now, my point being is we should be questioning whether that's even correct, right? If everyone's just jumping the gun and putting out information that we can't verify, corporate media included, very alarming. Here's corporate media doing the same thing. Secret Service rushes Trump off stage after he falls at rally. I mean, how stupid. Look, let's be clear. You can clearly see blood on the picture that they're using. And that's not, whether or not you think it's manipulated, whatever. It's not, to say he falled is a ridiculous thing to do, even if you acting on incomplete information. Same thing on this platform. Rushes him off stage after falling at rally. Like, they don't want to talk about this. They don't want, that's just petty stuff right there. Here's Washington Post, who did change it not long after it, but Trump rushed off stage after loud noises. Loud noises? I mean, obviously, it's more than that. Now, you can see, you don't have to say gunshots, but clearly it's not what they're framing it as. Now, they updated it to say loud pops. It's just so stupid. This is corporate media for you. And that's why David Icke calls them mainstream alternative media, because they're doing the same damn thing. Now, here's what Trump said on his Truth Social account. And then we're going to get into the actual details, shooting angles, and all the different things that I think show you some very interesting stuff. Now, keeping this in mind going through here, a lot of people on the right especially are calling for the Secret Service, the head of them, to resign, which, and whether or not whatever you think about this, in fact, I would agree. I mean, like, we're talking about a situation where, whatever the case, they're either involved or incompetent, or it's all completely arbitrary, made up, and it's to benefit Trump. Either way, they're violating what they should be doing. The point is, he says, I want to thank the United States Secret Service and all the law enforcement and their rapid response on the shooting, which doesn't we'll go through it. You tell me if this looks like what you would expect of a rapid response from the Secret Service. For me, that feels like that's the biggest example that there's something off here, like pretty much everyone's pointing out. Most importantly, he says, I want to extend my condolences to the family of the person at the rally who was killed, and also the family of another person that was badly injured, which I haven't seen any images or information around yet. It is incredible. It is incredible that such an act can take place in our country. Nothing is known at the time about the shooter, who is now dead, which this was posted yesterday at 7:42 p.m. Now, at that time, there was already information circulating about who this person was. So it's funny that he says that. It says, I was shot with a bullet that pierced the upper part of my right ear. Now, let's look at that when we go through this. Frankly, that's one of the parts that made me a little, yesterday's show. The images of his ear, it just doesn't look like what, we'll go wait till we look at it. It says, I knew immediately something was wrong in that I heard a whizzing sound and immediately felt the bullet rip through my skin. Much bleeding took place, so I realized that was happening. Now, the blood is also an interesting part about it, seeing as how the images seem to show that there's no blood that got on his collar, which seems very odd. And let's go through this. Oh, and there was, he also posted this. I didn't see this one. Oh, it's Melania Trump making a comment. And he simply adds that saying, thank you to everyone who, with thoughts and prayers yesterday, as it was God alone who prevented me the unthinkable from happening. I always feel obligated to point out that Donald Trump himself has acknowledged in his books, the past, that, it just in, I think, more than once in an abstract way, that he essentially leaned into the religious side of this because he was running as a conservative. That historically, I believe the arguments are that he's an atheist. But I'm sure everyone, he changed. Now he thinks differently, certainly possible. Or we can realize that he is written about how he adapts and pretends to be certain things for certain deals. And yeah, that's what this is, guys. I mean, if we can't see by now that Trump is playing the role, and that's exactly why I point out the partisanship, Trump's logic, no pun intended. So this is just, I think, that's, God saved us, because a lot of people right now are leaning into that. We'll even get into a very weird prophetic overlap. Somebody who seemed to have predicted exactly this back in March, and saying that he's like this. And Trump himself called himself the chosen one on an interview. Israel says the same thing. Weird. But it says, we will fear not, but instead remain resilient in our faith and defiant in the face of wickedness. Our love goes out. Again, that's usually not the shooter in general, but I think the general sentiment is that, they're fighting the Democrats, and that's the good, the light versus the dark, evil versus the good, which is just typical how they frame these things. Our love goes out to the other victims, their families. We pray for the recovery of those who are wounded and hold in our hearts the memory of the citizen who was horribly killed. It says, show our true character as Americans, remaining strong and determined and not allowing evil to win. I truly love our country and love you all. Look forward to speaking at the great nation from Wisconsin. People always point out that there's somehow like a meaning in the capitals that he uses occasionally. This is the whole QAnon overlap. I just wanted to point that out. Everybody will read into things they want to read into. If we can't see by now that the QAnon thing was a complete scam, then again, you don't want to see it. But that being said, let's talk about the actual facts around this. Now, yesterday, ABC reported through Olivia Rubin's account, the shooter at the Trump rally is dead, and so is one bystander. Now, the district attorney, Goldinger, also says there was possibly a second. Now, what the reports are now saying is that one was shot behind him, and there was another person also shot, but he didn't die, is what they're saying now today. Now, the timing of all this just doesn't make much sense to me. Now, it's hard to tell if there was 8 or 9 shots that fired off, or if there was echoes involved. But how is it that only one person or 2 people were shot? Or even that, you'll see what I mean when we go through this. It doesn't seem to add up. It's certainly possible, though. These are just, not necessarily that it proves. Things can happen that don't seem like they should, right? But it's one data point that you go, okay. Doesn't seem to add up. So let's watch. This is the unedited part, not the whole thing, but the part that really is important. Let's take a look at this. Shared by Autism Capital.
Well, want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened.
Okay, so what I want to show you, actually really quickly, let me do this real quick before we play that entire thing. Here is the shot of, where is it? Right here? Okay, so this is where Trump was doing the rally. This is where this guy was. Now, remember, there are people all around here partying, many of which tried to get their attention to Secret Service. And I'll show you the video. We showed it yesterday. Going, there's a guy with a gun on the roof. Apparently doing that for a long time, and nobody did anything about it. That's what they're saying. And there's more than one witness saying that. And now we do actually have a video, like I knew there would be, of somebody that was there, which adds to it. We'll get to that in a second. The point is, they're shooting at him here. He's facing generally that direction, right? Now here, back to the video. So before you hear the shot, so he's standing out on the stage facing the right now, okay? Now behind him, as we'll show you in a second, are kind of like more two-hit, it's hard, I don't know, confuse anybody. So if he's facing the stage, he's looking to his right. So sort of to his right, but behind him is where his snipers are, or where the U.S. government snipers are. So he's facing to the right now. We're to believe that the shooter is outward from him, across the way, right? So straight out, he's looking to the right, it's in front of him. So if he's turned to the right when that first shot fires off, how exactly did it hit his right ear? I find that to be strange, unless I'm missing something.
Take a look at what happened.
Right there. Oh, and it grabbed his ear. Okay. 2 shots. He falls down. That adds up to about 8 or 9, depending on if there was an echo with one of them. Now, in my opinion, the way that this all went down doesn't make much sense the way at least the way that we're told the Secret Service are supposed to be acting. Now that one is an anomaly to me. Now, some people would argue that's when they shot the shooter, but I'm going to show you when the sniper on the roof reacted, which was near the same time the first shot was rang off. So what is that last shot then? What does that mean? And there's also discussions about this guy who just ran up being the one that actually shot him, but I don't believe that to be the case. Now, we're going to get into what he says here in general. You can't hear a lot, some of it. One, he says, like, let me get my shoes, which I find interesting. But then he says, like, wait. I'll show you that in a second. I think that might be next, which I think is relevant. But so basically, they say the shooter's been neutralized. I'll play that one for you too. Then they let him stand up. Okay, so there's a time when there's no way they could know for sure what's going on. This is not protocol, if you understand. Like, the point is, you act as if we don't, the situation is not secure. There's no possible way they could have secured the situation. I mean, there are people in the crowd, there's people everywhere, so they don't know who's involved. Usually what you would do in this case, first, like the way they did, they dive on him, cover him from all angles, and then rush him out of the way as fast as possible when they know they've got a clear line to the car. Not let him stand up, stick his head up, put up an arm in the air. It doesn't make much sense to me, guys. Not from a Secret Service perspective or a general protection discussion. And what I think is funny, by the way, is look, you see behind these guys, you've got this guy. I don't know if I can zoom in on this for you guys, but if you look behind him, there's a lot of funny, there's this, not that this means anything, I just think it's interesting. So right now, people in the crowd are of the mind that there's shooting going on, which is clearly what it seems to be. And there's a guy right behind him just looking at his phone, standing straight up. I just think that's hilarious. Like, no concern with what's going on. I just think it's strange to me. I mean, a lot of them. It's interesting. Okay, so now they're still laying on top of him, behind the podium. Now this guy right here, the guy standing on the stage in front of the podium, to the right, you know, all in black with his gun. That's what some people are arguing was the one that shot it. I think it was, I don't know, we'll get to it in a second, saying he's a hero, he's the one that saved the day, which I don't even know how that makes sense, but certainly could be. But I'll show you how that contradicts the other information. Okay. Let's stand up with him. That guy with the gray hat right there in the back, like, it's just funny to me. He's just scrolling his phone, standing straight up. Okay, so right here. Now, doesn't even that right there seem a little bit inconsistent? Like, there's supposed to be a shooter going on. And yeah, they say they shot the guy, but right now you just completely opened up the line of sight to where that was coming from. That seems odd to me. Now, it seems like they're more interested in covering his face with his arms. Now, right here, you can't hear it. He says, wait. I'll play that in a second. And then he does the famous hand in the air. Wait, now, that one right here is supposed to, I think that's the one from the downward angle. Now, here's what's interesting to me. You're telling me that there's an assassination attempt going on. And you're letting people run up and take shots of him. I mean, that just does not add up from a security perspective, which could either suggest that, as many people are proposing, that this was the Secret Service that might have been involved, like a JFK overlap, right? Or they're just incompetent, or this was a manufactured event to benefit Trump. First, the three that seem most likely to me. You can decide for yourselves. All are possible. But I just don't see how you logically argue that this is what they would do, knowing that there's an event going on. I mean, again, we'll show you the clip of people in the crowd saying that there's two shooters. Now, it could just be that they were hearing the other snipers and thought that might have been another shooter. Like, it's never the right move to just blindly take a random news interview on the side of the road with some random person. They could be lying. They could be misinformed. But it's include it. Think about it. So right there, the famous shot is from down below him, right? From a person with a camera. I just don't think that makes sense. They would be completely surrounding him, covering him, running into the car. Really? Yeah, that's a good point in the chat. Play this out real quick. So, they run to the car, like, now they're carrying, right? It seems, makes much sense to me. Right there even, right? You're going to let him do that? Like, just so you understand, like, yes, he's the president, and yes, they take his orders from him, but at this moment in time, when these kind of things happen, the Secret Service have a mandate. Like, the point is, your life is what we're here to protect. Now, yes, it doesn't mean that they always do it and everyone's the same, but the reality is what we're supposed to understand is that they're supposed to be, there is no conversation at this point. They're supposed to be on him in the car. They wouldn't let him stand up and stick his head up while they know there might be a shooter out there. I know I've said it. I want you guys to make sure you hear that, because that to me is a big point, and it would suggest the Secret Service is incompetent or included. Suggest, not prove. What are they doing on this? Isn't that the guy right there? No. All right. So what Orwell's pointing out, by the way, is so right here, let's realize, so here he is in the stand, or in the podium, right? And so somebody got shot right behind him. Or at least that's the argument is that they were shooting at him and it missed him and hit somebody in the crowd, right? So where is that? Where is the reaction in the crowd? Doesn't just because we can't see it doesn't mean it's not there, but it's a good point. Right? Wouldn't there be a very identifiable example of somebody in the crowd, like people screaming and moving out? My argument would be is if there was a dead body in the stadium, people would pull back from it. You would see like a noticeable, like, that's what I would think. Yeah, I mean, look, it's supposed to be right there behind. I don't know. That doesn't line up for me, guys. Okay, so let's go from that. So here, this one is that the one? Let's see. Make sure it's the right one. Did I get that? Oh, yeah. Okay, it's right here. So here's just so you can hear him say, wait. It's really low, but if you turn your volume up, it's right there. He says, wait. Again, same point. To me, they're not supposed to be like, oh, okay, go ahead. We'll hold on for a second. In the peak of the moment when you think he's being attacked, right? You stood up now, and at this point, they've said the shooter has been taken out, but you don't know what else is going on. And they go, wait. Here, I want a photo opportunity, right? Now, or, it doesn't matter if you think it's just because, he's trying to say, I survived and support me. Of course. That will benefit him. And he knows that. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. My point is that the Secret Service would not have allowed that. To stick his head out, stand up, and, and wait. It kind of, to me, if you think this was something that was staged, that would be a point that sticks out. To say, hold on. So this is what we're supposed, this is the thing we're doing this for. But it's up to you to decide. Again, I'm not saying I even think that's most likely, or that I'm leaning. As we go through more towards the end, I'll tell you for sure what I think makes most sense. Before, I want to make sure you see all this before I put my opinion on top of it. But I definitely think you get the sense of what I'm very skeptical about a lot of stuff here. So they're just standing there? Nah, doesn't seem to make sense to me. So here, the footage shows the crowd spotting the shooter before the Secret Service take action. Now, this is hard. It's more sound than anything else, but this is important because we have multiple data points around this. And we'll show you the actual shots of him before, during, and after of this person on the roof. But remember that we'll show you that video again from the guy that was interviewed. They said, we were trying to tell everybody. We said there's a guy up there with the gun. And as we get into the shooter on the other side, from Trump's side, it certainly does not make sense.
And that's a little bit. He's going down!
Stay over here.
All that's showing you is that they were screaming he's got a gun from the crowd before the shots took off. So even people on the ground were like, hey, did you see that? And you're telling me that the snipers and securities and that nobody else was able to see what the crowd was pointing out? Certainly doesn't add up to me. Now here is the video of the guy killed on the roof. First, and we'll kind of go backward from here. So this is Taylor Hansen saying one of the shooters has been confirmed dead. One of the shooters, a possible second shooter in custody. Where's that coming from? I don't know. This is a reporter for Tenet Media. I'm not familiar. But that doesn't seem to be at least what the main conversation is saying now. But, you know, question everything. Certainly possible. Usually when there's more of a manipulated event, there tends to be more than one going on. But I think it's important to recognize that the data as a whole right now seems to be showing that there was the one shooter and multiple people shot. But if we're talking about second shooter, I think it seems to more sense to bring in the overlap between his snipers as well. We'll get to that. Now here is them just highlighting this from far away.
We can see the guy there. I think they hit him because the guy is...
That's him just laying on the roof right there. So here's the point. Look how obvious that is from where they're standing. Everybody was pointing this out before this took place. Very clear. Here they are on the roof dealing with it. Right? There's the police and the military up there removing the guy. And we'll get into, oh, pardon me, it's a graphic picture. We'll show that right now, so heads up. This is the person that they shot up there. National File says alleged would-be assassin of Donald Trump. Now, it's important. I know it's graphic, but the point is his ear and different overlaps. We're going to compare this to the person they're claiming it is. It's obvious there's inconsistencies here. It doesn't really line up for me. But keeping this in mind, we'll come back to it. Here is the audio of them simply saying shoot her down. A lot of these are just data points that may be more relevant as this goes forward. Okay, so the timing's important. See, there's that guy to the right of the podium that other people are claiming was the one that shot him, right? So at this point, a lot has taken place in regard to the other people. Like, my point is, I'm going to show you this next in regard to his shooters and the time when they shoot. Very clearly, you can see that the U.S. government sniper react before the first shot is fired or right at the same time. So why would it take this long for that to be said? We're good. Shoot her down, they said. Now, yes, it's said when they stand him up, which is important. But you're going to see why I don't think this really lines up. Now, first, here is the video we played yesterday. And then, again, this was played from this account yesterday, long before this was being shared everywhere else. Always important to highlight our value to breaking information early. Now, this is important. Again, this is a random guy. You don't know what his motives are, his intentions, or, or if this is all staged. Who knows? Always question everything. But taking it at face value, and it is backed up by other people, and there is other video we'll show you after this that does, in fact, get a shot of the guy up there before they shot him. This is important because his main point is that he tried to tell them, and nobody seemed to care.
You weren't inside the event, nope, but you were just outside. Tell us what you saw.
So we had a party here all day. You can see behind us at the Brinkles Farming Greenhouse here. We had a party, and we all decided, hey, when we hear Trump up there, we're going to walk up through the field, stand by the trees up there under the shade, and watch and listen to the rally. Right? We couldn't see him, but we could hear him. So we walked up. And probably 5 to 7 minutes of Trump speaking. I'm estimating here. I have no idea, But we noticed a guy crawling, bear crawling up the roof of the building beside us, 50 feet away from us. So we're standing there, and, we're pointing at the guy crawling up the roof.
And he had a gun, right?
He had a rifle. We could clearly see him with a rifle. Absolutely. We're pointing at him. The police are down there running around on the ground. We're like, hey, man, there's a guy on the roof with a rifle. And the police were like, huh, what? You know, like they didn't know what was going on.
If you already, we already showed you the shot. There are people standing there drinking their beers, and you can clearly see a guy on the. I don't care whether you think he has a gun or not. A guy on the roof like that would be hugely noticeable. And I mean, from the Secret Service perspective or police, that's immediately something that gets notified. Everyone knows about it. We have to deal with this guy. Timeout. There's something going on, whether or not he has a gun, because he's in a position where something could be done. And you're telling me that he's telling the police that there's a guy, and they're like, "What? What? You mean the guy right there that we can see as I'm pointing at it and you're confused?" That doesn't seem to make sense unless he's not telling the truth, or he's confused, or he's misremembering.
You know, we're like, hey, right here on the roof, we can see him from right here. We see him. You know, he's crawling. And next thing you know, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, why is Trump still speaking? Why have they not pulled him off the stage? I'm standing there pointing at him for, 2 or 3 minutes.
Okay, so if he's correct in this, and yeah, I would agree in the chat. I mean, this gut feeling appears to feel like it's accurate, but that's never the good thing. Consider that. I trust my gut more than anything, but still know that doesn't mean it's absolutely true. But the 2-minute time frame, right? So here we are where he's saying, I see a guy with a gun. Not saying a guy, telling the police, Secret Service, I see a guy with a gun. Minutes go by and he's still speaking. There's no way that adds up.
Secret Service is looking at us from the top of the barn. I'm pointing at that roof, just standing there like this. And next thing you know, 5 shots ring out.
So you're certain that the shots came.
So that might be very relevant as well. Now, it's hard to tell whether we're talking about echoes or whatever, but he says 5 shots ring out. So if we're talking about 8 or possibly 9, that is interesting. But what is that? How do we account for the others? If, as I'm going to show you next, you can see his Trump sniper fire or respond right in the same moment. So keep that in mind.
And that guy on the roof.
100%. 100%.
And he was certain that the shots came from that guy on the roof.
100%. 100%.
And he was up there for a couple of minutes.
He was up there.
You saw him up there for a couple of minutes.
Absolutely. At least 3 to 4 minutes.
And you were telling the police and the Secret Service.
We were telling the police. We were pointing at them for the Secret Service, who were looking at us from the top of the barn. They were looking at us the whole time when we were standing by that tree.
Could they see
binoculars?
Could they see him?
Probably not, because the roof, the way the slope went, he was behind where they could see. But why is there not Secret Service on all of these roofs here?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
or the obvious question is, why was this not secured beforehand? Is one of the only buildings on a visual path to the stage beforehand?
This is not a big place.
Did you see? I mean, obviously, everyone when the shooting started, everyone was very panicked. Did you see what happened to him at all?
Oh yeah, they blew his head off.
Okay, sorry.
Secret Service blew his head off.
Okay, just be careful because we don't.
They're talking about the shooter. Well, clearly that's not what the picture shows, or maybe he's just saying that as a, kind of a euphemism. But the point is he's saying they shot the shooter.
I know he's watching, but you're pretty sure they shot the guy.
Absolutely, 100%.
Okay.
Yep.
You saw that happen?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And did you see them go up to him afterwards, or?
They crawled up on the roof. They had their guns pointed at him, make sure he was dead. He was dead, and that was it. It was over.
It's incredibly shocking.
The guy was on the roof right there. You can see the white roof right there.
Did you get a look at him? Could you?
No, other than he was in muted colors, tan type clothing. We saw the rifle flinging around as he was trying to crawl. I mean, we saw the rifle, 100%.
Do you know about guns? Do you know what kind of weapon it was?
Oh, I absolutely know about guns, for sure. No, I mean, it was a rifle of some sort. I wouldn't know, I wasn't close enough to read the label on it, but
sure. But
it was a rifle of some sort. Yeah, absolutely.
So how do you process what you've just seen?
I don't know what to say, man. All I'll tell you is, if I walked up close to there with anything that Secret Service considered a problem, I wouldn't be standing here talking to you right now. But I don't know why a guy who we're standing there pointing out to police and Secret Service is crawling up the roof.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, right there by that tree. We were outside the security perimeter. But my question.
Oh, so I think what the question was, were you outside the security zone? I mean, but it doesn't matter. The point is, if you're in a situation like this, they would secure the only highest point that could see down on the stage. There's just no way around it. And as I understand it, we're talking like 130 meters. and these are from like expert opinions based on the time for like from the shots in general, but also the building is easy to know where that building is in regard to how far away it is, which is I understand it, despite what some people are saying from a sniper's perspective or a shooter that's in any way practiced, that it's not a hard shot.
Is there's only a few buildings around here. Why is Secret Service not at every building here?
Well, there's a whole bunch of questions I think that are going to come.
There's a whole bunch of questions.
Yeah.
Yes, she was right in front of me.
I don't know why she asked about a Trump supporter on a horse, which is what she said with the flag. I'm not sure what that relevance was.
She kept going back and forth right in front of me. Yes.
Tell us about her.
I mean, nice horse, nice lady running with a flag. Seemed very, patriotic.
But what's the significance of her?
No, he asked me if I saw a horse.
Okay.
Yeah, what does that have to do with anything? Why would that person ask that? I don't know, actually. Maybe they're just a bad reporter. I don't know.
Listen, I'm sorry you had to witness that. That was a terrible thing. And you should stay safe with your family.
So, now here, Ian Carroll pointed this out today. Late yesterday. And this is the same thing I was saying. He said, so first, let's remember, and of course, this post is now gone. And this is rampant, guys. These people are constantly dumping things online and saying, proven this and that, and then deleting them and not pointing that out. He says, so let's first remember patience while we sift through information. Take your time. But this dude didn't have a phone. He could see a shooter climbing up to the roof with a rifle and no one took a cell video. Remember, the op might be more complicated than you think. And that's what I simply said in response to that. Simply pointing out that this is what we were talking about yesterday, and it might still come out, but I find it very hard to believe that no one there filmed this. That was my point during our show yesterday. And turns out that somebody did. Wide Awake Media shared this. I believe it was from, TMZ. You can see it in the background. So what you're seeing here, which is crazy to me, and this is even more, look at the picture of that guy. I don't think that looks like the other pictures we're going to show you of the people they're claiming this person was. The hair color seems different, but we'll get to that in a second. But either way, this is the person. So somebody is literally taking a shot at this guy before all of this. See just how many people clearly were identifying a shooter on the roof and nobody did anything about it. A lot of things that could add up to, but clearly there's something more going on here. Now, here's the video at the bottom. I'll play this for you now, where it shows them kind of talking about this as he's laying there and yelling, there's a guy, watch out, and same point.
Get over here!
I hope he's turning this way. Be careful, guys.
Now, here's what's interesting. We just heard shots. Am I wrong?
I hope he's turning this way. Be careful.
Right there. Yeah, I mean, unless there's something going on, firecracker. I mean, those are 3 or 4 pops are right there. And if you watch this whole thing, it's only in one series, 8 or so many in a row, right? So that would mean that he just got shot, or somebody shot, or he shot. The same thing. If there's only one series of these shootings and then one trailing afterward, he got shot in that process. Right there. But here's the guy's thing. After that.
I hope he's turning this way. Be careful, guys.
He's turning this way. Now, again, he could be wrong about that. But he's saying he's turning this way. Now, remember, the top one's still, the bottom half is the video. Okay, so that last shot appears to be the one that got him, based on what this video shows, where you go, oh, he's down. That's them saying that. After that last shot that trailed after the series of them in the first place, which I'm going to show you is very inconsistent, or it doesn't really make sense why the sniper who was looking at him from the roof on Trump's side, who acted, did not shoot this guy. At least not.
Yes!
What the fuck is going on?
Run!
Dad, where's that? Dude, that's exactly why we need fucking Trump here.
Oh, the fucking Secret Service don't fuck around, man. Holy shit.
Yeah, look, they're undercover.
And realize the Secret Service,
Where's Saffron?
That's him.
they have off the race authorization to shoot to kill immediately, right? There's not some like idea where they have to wait to be fired at or, or like have their safeties on. I mean, these people are trained to immediately respond if there's a threat. That's important to think about. Okay, so the point from here is that clearly in the start of this video, you can see with the top shot, the guy's there, kneeling, aiming a gun, okay? Then you hear shots fire off, and the guy's going, oh, he's turning this way, and then that last pop fires, and then they go, oh, they got him. Very relevant at this next point. I keep here, hold on. Well, I keep saying this next point, but I want to make sure. And now it's a good, I'm going to trail with this one next. We'll come back. There's another guy talking about seeing things, but let's do this first. So there's a lot of this has the same information, the same, other posts and so on. And this one too, saying this is the guy. But it's not, at least according to everybody, the information circulating. Okay. This is fantastically stupid. So check this out. This is the whole point. So it's not even the guy's right name, apparently. If this is correct. These fact checks on Twitter can be notoriously wrong. That doesn't look like him. Oh, yeah, sure enough. Okay, so check this out. So this is apparently a guy named Marco Violi, a football-based YouTuber in Rome. Not Mark, whatever they called him, and not an Antifa member, and not, it's just ridiculous. And all of these people, this guy included, are sharing this, saying Mark Violets was Antifa member, and they shot him. Almost every large Republican account that was immediately talking about this was sharing this video of him going pop, 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 saying, oh, they posted a video about he was going to shoot Trump. Apparently not. Apparently it's not even the right guy from the right place, and the right member, and the video's about something else. Caution, guys. There are people that who are intentionally misleading you, and those that are just too irresponsible for misleading you, and some that are just too stupid to know. But the point here is this video, which has been posted from a lot of different angles, is very important to this conversation. So let's play this next. Okay, so here, remember what we talked about in the first place. So here's Trump on the stage, right, on the right. So across the field, field, from where he's facing is where the guy was shooting, right? We've seen it described from every angle. So my point is, to his right, Trump's right, is where you can see those snipers on the roof protecting him. They're looking right at the shooter. They're looking exactly in the direction of where that guy was. And this is before it happened. And then remember, Trump turns to his right and that's when the shots are fired. And somehow they hit his right ear. How does that even possibly make sense? So here, and watch, I'm going to play this one again, actually, so you can see that.
See something.
Okay, so there he is, facing his right. As we just showed you, his snipers are to his right. He's facing the right. His right ear is what got shot.
That said, take a look at what happened.
Grab his ear. How in the world does that make sense? Now, maybe a second shooter. Maybe that's why that comes in. But the narrative we're getting right now does not line up at all. How was his right ear shot if he is facing the right when maybe one of his snipers shot him? I don't know. Hey, Instagram censored our show every single time. I know I say it every time. Maybe you guys don't like it, but I think it's funny because it's every show. But that does not line up for me. Now back to this. Okay, so here sorry, it's freezing on me. So he's giving his speech, and this is right when this is right before the shots start to happen. Now pay attention to his sniper. It either appears that guy fired first, or he reacted at the same time. If that's the case, then why wasn't this 9th shot way after the other 8 that actually killed the guy, according to people that were right next to him?
A couple of months old, and if you want to really see something that said, take a look at what.
Okay, he picks his head up. The sniper picks his head up, which I find strange, and then seems to fire or at least react after he does that.
Take a look at what happened.
See that? How in the world does that make sense for even for a sniper? Why would you pick your head up away from the scope and then like reactively fire at the same time you're putting your head back down? That seems pretty strange to me. I'm not a sniper, but I mean, it's kind of basic, isn't it? Watch.
I really see something that said, take a look at what happened.
Okay, clearly he did something right there. Now, there are people arguing that these are the only shots that were fired. And you can pretty much line it up with his movements. That was one. There's two. 2, 3. What the fuck? 4, 5, 6, 7. A bunch of them fired after that. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But my point is, this guy clearly fired at least first or at the same time. So why was this guy, did he miss? And if that's the case, why wasn't this immediately radioed in? Or the bigger point, if he's staring right at the guy, didn't even have to move his scope, how did he not see the guy on the roof with a gun? There's just no way that makes any sense.
And you know, that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old. And if you want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened.
What the fuck?
Now, right there, they continue to fire, but Trump's already down, right? So maybe that's them firing at him. I mean, I don't know, but it's all of it. None of this really seems to add up. So here's the other one. J6 Videos shared this, and this just goes further back, simply showing you 42 seconds. It says the counter snipers didn't take the shot at the shooter sniper that he's claiming. They were looking at him at least 42 seconds before the earshot on Donald Trump. And they're just claiming they just didn't do anything and that they missed it, which is certainly one of the possibilities. And it says, did the CIA do an inside job with Thomas Matthew Crooks? If that's even the guy, we'll get to that in a second. Here's their video. Seven minutes and 21 seconds before the shot. So look at them standing there, guys, with their binoculars looking in the exact location. So 7 minutes, right? So if we base it on what the guy said, which is 2 minutes or so, that they said it, look, a guy with a gun, minutes go by and nobody did anything, and then he finally fired. So that's within this time frame where they're looking either through their scopes or with their binoculars at the exact location, or at least in the general direction. My point is, though, you can line this up with exactly where they were at.
That's when I left office. That was the
Now it's fuzzy, but now you're back to the point that we just showed you. Now they're on their scopes looking directly over
lowest point, and that comes right from the government services, comes right out of Border Patrol. Take a look at that. So that arrow is the lowest amount of illegal immigration ever in recorded history into our country. And then
the reason this is important is they're showing you this entire time. They're looking through their scopes at the exact location.
And then the worst president in the history of our country took over. And look what happened to our country. Probably 20 million people.
Right here.
And you know, that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old. And if you want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened.
There you go. Now, with this one was, let me see. Oh, I think I just had this here because the same point about where he's facing, right? So look, the same point. I just used the other video to make the point. He's facing to the right when that happens. I still think that's one of the most relevant points right now. How did he get shot in his right ear from a guy that's directly in front of him across the way while he's facing the right? That either means that was somebody else in the crowd to his right, one of their snipers, or it wasn't even a real shot. And there's something else going on, which we'll get to in a minute. Certainly people are arguing that this was a manufactured event. But I find that really hard to believe with what we're looking at, but it's certainly possible. The only reason I'm saying that is because there's a lot of people around, a lot of people seeing what's going on, but that's never a reason to dismiss something as possible. All right, clearly there's inconsistency here, and that could be, it's just as likely that this was something that was manufactured for their own benefit, or that was carried out by somebody else outside of this, or that they were involved. I mean, all these are very possible. Like, let me put it this way. If you're considering the reality, or the possibility rather, that this might have been an internal thing, or the Secret Service were involved, they wanted to take him out, why then would you dismiss the possibility that Trump's campaign might have done this to benefit themselves? That's like the same conversation in a different extreme. They're both just as likely. They're both considered conspiracy theory. right? But it's because partisanship, right? But from a nonpartisan perspective, when we're not breaking our logic for our own party side, they're all possible. And they both seem just as likely. But to go back to this, here's another guy, Decentered News shared this. And by the way, I want to make sure I shout them out. Decentered News and Orwell in general have been sending a lot of important stuff. And I really thank them for the work they did over yesterday to today, finding a lot of important information that they sent to me. So just if you're not following Decentered News or Orwell, I recommend that you do. They're doing great work. Decentered News highlights this. And man, and I think what they're saying is, it's for this, not really anybody's been highlighting the person's name. Ben Macer says that he was up at the fence line at the Trump rally today and saw the alleged shooter, quote, move from roof to roof, he says. Interesting, which in my opinion only makes it all the more obvious, conspicuous. And says, reported it to police officers. Now they have two separate people well before telling police officers there was a shooter on the roof. There's no confusing this, guys. He says he then found a better vantage point, went back and told the officer again that if he goes back to that particular spot, he can see the person, figuring that he would go on the radio, which they would if this was an honest situation. Or if this guy is maybe telling the truth. You know, it's all, consider everything. It says, quote, and when I turned around to go back when I was in to where I was is when the gun starts shooting. So he told him well beforehand. Then there were two officers that were actively searching. He said you couldn't tell that they were looking for somebody. They tried helping. Then where the guy was. I didn't have to look. Did not have a good look at him. I just seen him going from one building to another. He estimates 250 yards away, which I don't know the exact math, but 130 meters. That's definitely more than 130 yards. But I forget the breakdown. But generally speaking, I think the actual is like 130 meters from how far away it was. Here's his video.
A gentleman who was along the fence line. I'm just meeting him right now, sir. Thank you so much. You're talking to KDKA. Can I have your name and what did you see and hear?
There's Ben Macer. I was at the same point that probably the witness you were talking to earlier. I was up at the fence line, saw the guy move from roof to roof, told an officer that he was on the roof. The officer come looking, I went back to where heard that there was somebody that could see the person, so I went back to where they were standing, saw the person, went back and told the officer again that if he goes back to that particular spot, he can see the person, figuring that he would go in radio. And when I turned around to go back to where I was is when the gunshots started, and then it was just chaos, and we all came running away, and that was that.
So let me get this right. So you actually saw the man on top of the roof behind us?
Yes.
And you're saying people reported that to law enforcement, saying there is a man on the roof of the building?
Yes, there were two officers that were actively searching. You could tell they were searching and looking for somebody, and we just tried to help and tell them where the guy was. And at some point, somebody obviously found him, or the snipers found him, and that was the end of his decisions.
Did you get a good look at the guy on the roof?
I did not have a good look at him, but I just seen him going from one building to another. There was a little gap in between, and he went. And when I went back to see the people that I heard that could see him, seen a quick look at him there, and then went to the officer to tell the officer, and that was all that I got.
How many gunshots did you hear?
I have no idea. It was, at first I didn't know what I heard, and then once it became clear what I heard, that it was just getting out of there, and I helped a lady that had a 4-year-old kid, helped them get out, and that was it. We were done, and everybody went home. And
you're obviously shaken up right now, just talking to me.
A little bit. It's not every day that you're that close to anything like that.
How far do you think that shooter was from the stage of where the former president was speaking?
Probably 200, 250 yards.
Was it parallel to where the president was, where he was?
I could not see the president, so I'm not 100% sure, but it was definitely close to parallel.
What are your questions right now just in light of this happening?
I don't have questions. I'm just, curious like anybody else, and just seeing what all is still going on. I live close to here, so I'm just taking it all in and seeing what's going on.
No questions, huh?
Thank you so much for your time.
Afraid to be called a conspiracy theorist. No questions, but I'm curious. Well, that's questions, man. It's funny how people are so reluctant to be like, this is odd. That doesn't make sense. Oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. It's that's the whole point of why that comes around. And here, I think this is the same, but I wasn't sure. I think this one actually follows up. Another witness comes forward saying the gunman, he saw the gun before the shots rang out.
Take me back. What were you doing before the shooting happened? And then what did you see and hear?
I was just standing there like everybody else, waiting for Trump. And as Trump started, I noticed two officers that were looking for something or somebody. I was looking around myself, and
so before it, you have officers looking for somebody. Doesn't that seem a little bit odd? Like, if they're being told by multiple people they see a guy with a gun, and then they're looking for somebody, at that point, there's no way they wouldn't have notified Secret Service.
Seen a guy on top of one of the buildings go in between one building.
Yeah, no, guys, I'm aware this is the same guy. Is this redundant? I was doing something around it while I was playing the other one. I thought this one had different information. Let me know in the chat.
To the next, and went and told the officer that he was up there. And when I went back to my spot, I heard that people could still see the person from where they were standing. So I checked that out, and I went back to tell the officer that if he came over there, he could see them.
Yeah, I think I wasn't sure if there was a part that was missed in the last one. In any case, I think that's very important to hear. The idea that they were looking, a lot of foreknowledge here, a lot of information that they clearly had and did not act on. Now, here's the shot again, right? So you could argue that it might have been parallel, but slightly to the left. But in any case, Trump is turning to the right, which makes that even more unlikely that he was going to get shot in his right ear. And you can see the building that they were on right next to him. That's that little small building that they're sitting on, that they're aiming up for, and clearly looking in the same direction. Doesn't make sense. Here, same thing. This is from Fox News shot, it looks like, showing you Trump stage, and there's that same little building, and there's where the shooter location is. It's the same game, guys. It doesn't make much sense. Here, this one was the one I showed you about the shooter, their snipers. Oops, dang it. Okay, so here's a close shot, which I find very interesting. That's what I use for today. Now, it's hard to tell, and as always, it's camera shots, angles, lighting. There's ways that photographs can play tricks on certain the way things look, and it's always important to think about that. But that being said, first of all, again, he's turned to the right. But I don't really see much. Maybe right here at the very top of his ear, is there maybe something missing right there? So if you do believe he was shot, it's a pretty small nick in his ear, which I find pretty, that's just interesting. But I don't really see much else. I'm hearing all these different narratives about how it went through his ear and through the bottom of his ear, all these different descriptions that just simply do not line up with what we're looking at. That's him walking away with his ear shot. Now here, that's all showing that's that shot from down below, perfectly capturing the American flag. Now, one of the arguments, you know what? I don't think I have that image pulled up. One of the arguments was that, and you can see it if you look, that there's really no blood on right beneath his ear on his collar. And the blood you could see seems to be pretty much just on his ear. Now, if you got shot in the cartilage of your ear, that's notorious. It bleeds like crazy. So I find it odd that there wouldn't be a lot more blood. And the other point is, and that is why I had the other video up. Now, I don't want to bring it back up again, but let me see if I have, here, let me do this. I've got it right here. Okay, so watch. The other part is he would have blood on his hand, wouldn't he? Now, maybe it's that they hadn't started bleeding yet. Again, I'm not saying these are all definitive, provable things. They're just data points that you guys can consider. But watch. I don't appear to see any blood in his hand. Now, it's a kind of a fuzzy shot, and there are better shots of it. But if you look, it doesn't appear that there's any blood on his hand. Then from there, here, this does look like you might be able to see some blood right there between his thumb and his finger, but it's hard to tell. So just for those that are making that point, it's hard to tell whether or not that was the case. That does, I mean, it does look like that might be blood on his hand right there. If you see what I'm saying, right there. I don't know if you can see the mouse or not, but between his thumb and his pointer finger. But so then, you know, the whole thing, like what's weird about the shot and like the blood on his face, like it just doesn't seem to really line up for me with what you'd expect by the shot and how much blood and so on. But here, this is a person highlighting this, and I've seen a lot of this point. This man shot down the shooter in just a second after shots were fired. Well, that's not even remotely accurate with what we've already seen. He saved Trump's life. Now, this is that random guy that was standing next to the stage well after the shots were fired. But that could just be because this is the guy that was there and somebody wants to pretend they have a breaking story and they go, that's the guy that was on the stage. It must be him. The assumptive mainstream alternative media. Really, it happens in all media. It's not unique to one group or the other. The point is that there's a lot of people that are just lazy with their reporting or don't care. It's not really about being factual. It's about being first. I'm not saying that about this guy. I don't know. The point is clearly that does not appear to line up with everything else we've already shown you. On top of that, this person simply goes, I guess Secret Service agents just didn't notice a ladder leading to a roof 150 feet is not accurate away from Trump. There's a lot of this that simply leads to the conclusion that somebody involved with this allowed it to happen or that they knew that this would happen and it was something for their benefit. Wall Street Journal, authorities search for motive after Trump assassination attempt. And here they are claiming that it is Thomas Matthew Crooks. And we'll get into that in a second. They're adding, again, Trump said that God prevented the unthinkable. Secret Service shot and killed the suspected gunman, identified as 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks. Authorities also found explosive devices in his car that he had been driving, which is interesting. Certainly, if somebody's doing this, it's not that far-fetched to think they would try to use bombs, whatever else, they're going to act crazy. But doesn't that seem consistent with a lot of these other narratives we've seen, in a lot of which we've shown later are not what they appear to be? Where you end up finding this kind of stuff, or you find some weird, there always seems to be some kind of a explosive overlap, and a lot of these things turn out to be false narratives. But I just kind of find that interesting. They also found explosive devices in his car, apparently, according to people briefed on the investigation. It says one spectator was killed and 2 others critically injured. So now they're reporting 2 other people were shot. I haven't seen much followed up on that. Crooks used a firearm that this is important, of course, for the gun side of it. He used a firearm that had been purchased legally by his father. And explosive devices were found in his car. But the point is, they're already pushing to use this to enact gun restrictions, unconstitutionally. But what does that have to, if he got a legal gun from his father, what in the world does that have to do with anything? That's a legal gun. That's the whole point. Is a gun restricted zone going to do anything? No, he's acting illegally. Is background check going to do anything? No, because he took it. The point is, this is all being used as always in a lot of different ways that have nothing to do with what's really going on. Now here, Ken Silva's posting this is a person that was there claiming they are, at least what everybody was saying, is I think kind of the way she frames it, is there was 2 shooters. But remember, there's multiple dynamics to this. It could be that they just heard of the shots and mistook that. But the fact with Trump turning his right ear being shot, in my opinion, adds a little bit more credence to the possibility that may have been the case if you believe he was actually shot. I think it was this one. It's right here.
Out of there, as you're starting to process this, I know we'll all be processing this over the coming days and weeks. How are you feeling now in this moment?
Well, what I've heard coming out here is now they feel that there was 2 shooters on both sides. So they got the one on the tower on this side, but the one on the right side they never got. So that's why they wanted us to leave immediately, because they thought there's still a shooter out there somewhere. So there could be in these woods around Butler.
Aaron, I've covered many Trump rallies. I don't know how many you've been to.
My 6th. This is yours. I was here. I was the 4th car in the parking lot this morning.
Yeah, I mean, everything in me screams that woman is just saying unsubstantiated rumors that they heard. And if it comes from the right talking head or it comes from the right, the certain pundit, they just repeat that's very common in the partisan media and partisan supporters today. But consider it. The idea that there could have been another shooter, but that seems completely subjective to me, like a lot of this, but consider it. Here, we're going to get into the, aside from the first one we showed you that was all yesterday, still a lot of people claiming different narratives about who was shooting and who, and so on, which any one of these could be the case. The point being that a lot of these people are saying this without any kind of verification. This is a Chuds of TikTok. Trump rally shooter has been identified as 32-year-old California resident Hank Pecker. Now, if that's not the case, then that's pretty irresponsible and will probably ruin Hank Pecker's life. Shouldn't we care to make sure we verify these things, or is it just about making sure that it is a California resident or a Democrat or some kind of a narrative that makes it seem as if it's the thing you want it to be? As far as I can tell, that's entirely inaccurate. This is a, I'm not even random, I'm not sure, a person posting this online, simply highlighting, and again, I'm not leaning the fact check angle of this or calling them conspiracy theorists. You know my stance on all this. You have every right to ask these questions, but it's irresponsible to state these things when you have not fleshed them out like a lot of them are doing. This person is saying, as was expected, conspiracy theories around the shooting, which, by the way, just because they call them conspiracy theories does not mean they're fake or incorrect. Just like the corporate media has a lot of really stupid theories that they say are facts that almost always turn out to be false. The point is, from their high, what's the right term for it? Their high horse, claiming that everybody else is confused, but nonetheless, these things are accurate. Or, I mean, rather, these things are inaccurate in the context of what's currently happening, as far as we could tell. He's saying that around the shootings are popping up like mushrooms. Conspiracy theory. Really, the way I would frame it, to avoid using the stupid term conspiracy theory, is there's a lot of theories around this shooting that are popping up all over the place, which is completely okay. The problem I have is people that are framing their theory as provable information. He says, as this opaque moment is the best time to get engagement to make money, which I agree with. It's that. It's also people that are interested in progressing a partisan narrative or a partisan agenda, or just governments using it all to put you in your place as they see it. That's the government, not left and right, but all of them. Now it says, if you aren't already, I suggest, well, I don't care about that. This is a person that is corporate media connected, and they're like, look to this guy for the facts, and it's someone that lies to you all the time. But here's what I'm highlighting. He's simply saying this video, which we'll show you in a second, of what appears to be Matthew Crook, is not, it says that he's claiming, and this is where it gets very confusing, and I'm not saying I even know this. This is up in the air right now. There's a lot of overlapping information, a lot of directly inconsistent and contradictory information. And more than once, we've already seen even the media, corporate-wise, lean into what they claim is the person, which later turns out to be false. They're just as bad as the mainstream alternative media. Guys, they're the same thing as far as I'm concerned. But it says, this is not a video of the shooter at Trump's Pennsylvania rally. This, he says, is the exact same Twitter user who pretended to be the shooter in an odd trolling attempt. He posted this video an hour ago and quickly deleted it. It's now being shared as if it's a message by the real shooter. Now, you could take it one of two ways. I'll play in a second, whether he's saying you got the wrong guy in the sense that it means he's the guy, or in the sense that you're saying that I'm the guy when I'm not the guy. You could take it either way. It's interesting. But the point is, he's claiming that's not the guy, even though that's what's being presented in many cases as the guy that's the shooter. He also then says this ONSINT defender, and then names Laura Loomer, and some other major accounts are falsely claiming that the same person, is the photo of the shooter at Trump's rally. This account is claiming this is the picture of that Twitter user who posted himself as trolling attempt a couple of hours ago and is very much alive. And it seems to be the case that he is alive because he's posting videos going, you got the wrong guy. So either way you look at it, whether it's a shooter or not, the point is the Laura Loomers of the world and the rest are saying that that's the guy that got killed, and you can clearly say that's not the case. Same old, same old. She'll probably delete this one and minutes later anyway and never look back, even though she's grifting all that support and money from all the people that she is lying to. And this one's simply saying Jews try to assassinate Trump, which again, my stance on the idea that it's some kind of all the Christians or all the Jews, it's just broad stroking, which is always ignorant. If you want to make this argument, you can make the argument. You have a right to free speech. My point is that the argument to claim that it's somehow all of a certain religion trying to kill Trump doesn't really seem to make sense to me. You are Zionist, sure. Jewish Zionist, absolutely. Christian Zionist, absolutely. Or certain countries, Israel or China or Russia. I mean, these would make sense. But to say that Christians try to kill Trump, it doesn't really make much sense, does it? Here, the same account says major blue tick accounts are falsely claiming, and this is the one we already showed you, that an, quote, Antifa extremist named Mark Violets, who now we just showed you is not even Mark Violets, was the shooter at the Trump rally in Pennsylvania, who early revealed his plan on YouTube. The video shows an Italian football fan, Marco Violi, who has nothing to do with the shooting, which does appear to be the case. Not because this guy said so or because they're fact checking, but because we did our due diligence and that appears not to be the case, or that it's not the shooter. So that's all said in the point to show you that a lot of this is inconsistent. There's a lot of people pretending that they can know when they don't. I mean, therefore I am post this saying breaking, which I don't know when. Anyway, that I love the breaking is what they all love to do. In many cases, it's information that's been circulating for hours. The gunman, and usually they take that from another account and say breaking, but it says the gunman who attempted to assassinate President Donald Trump was identified, which is the case, even though whether or not it's the truth, New York Post and the rest of them have been, and a lot of these major corporate platforms are the ones saying this. Wall Street Journal was identified as 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks. Now, that, in my opinion, is not that guy. And again, this is the guy they're claiming was on the roof. That's the picture largely being used. This is the one being circulated by the Loomers of the world. But this does not appear to be the same guy. And that, at least unless it's a camera difference or light, remember I said about his hair? That's a much lighter hair color. The one we saw earlier was darker brown. Maybe it changed. That's certainly possible. But remember the pictures. Now, on top of that, you see a lot of this happening. And now this, to me, quite frankly, is just grifting. This is just people, or trolling for that matter, just thinking it's funny to dump false information out there, which again, is their right. To say that they shouldn't be able to do that is a violation of their rights, guys. You should just be smart enough to show discernment and do your due diligence and not blindly trust people share online without your own. I mean, that's Twitter files for you. That's what they want from you. They want to use it as kind of a problem, reaction, solution situation to drive you to justify and support your own censorship. But here is a random account saying Trump rally shooter immediately killed by law enforcement after his assassination failed. Identification found his body, identifies him as a Ukrainian man, apparently named Semen Hydenko. Doesn't that face look familiar? You might think so. I'll show you why. This is not a new thing. This is really interesting, by the way. And then they're comparing it to this guy, which as far as I can tell, is not even remotely the same guy. That's just lazy, but maybe it's just about trying to get attention, right? Here, another one doing the same thing. And then, hey, remember that guy? Remember that guy that keeps popping up and being shoved in the conversation as somebody, even the corporate media at one point ended up pointing to this guy, even though it ended up not being the guy. This is the same face as far as I can tell. The point, though, nonetheless, is that neither of these are what we're actually talking about. But this account says, breaking. The Federal Security Service have published images of a major suspect in the shooting of Donald Trump. Authorities have identified the man as Ukrainian citizen known as Semen Hydenko. Now, again, that very well may be true. Based on everything I can see, that doesn't seem to be the case. But just realize that the narrative we're getting from the media doesn't add up. The shooting angles, the people involved, I'm questioning the corporate media narrative more than anything. But then realizing within it, you're seeing these alternative narratives that also seem to be completely devoid of evidence. My point in even saying that is because it wouldn't surprise me, excuse me, I got a hiccup. It wouldn't surprise me if Ukraine or somebody like that was involved in this, if not to support Trump, because doing this and making sure you don't kill him would definitely, as we're going to show you, drive support to Donald Trump. That's one of the possibilities. In my opinion, one of the less likely, because of all the other inconsistencies, but it's certainly possible this was about trying to make Trump the attacked hero. But it's just funny to me that this picture literally pops up now, almost every shooting like this, and it circulates and people lie about it. And I honestly think it's just trolling, to be really honest. I think it's funny. But there's plenty of people that don't know that, and high-level accounts share it going, well, we knew it. It's a Democrat. It's a whatever we want to say for our narrative. Well, here's Syrian Girl showing the image that at least is being presented as, I think, as the one they're claiming is the shooter. Showing you what the image, by the way, the image on the back being misrepresented by a lot of people saying this is a, Nazi symbol. It's a symbol of an Israeli secret intelligence service symbol, which all of them you could argue, or also could be an American eagle symbol. That eagle's been used a lot, right? The point is she finds out that it is in fact actually the Demolition Ranch shirt. And she says the Trump shooter has a Demolition Range shirt on. So like a range shooter. And she's right. This may have a negative effect on gun laws, which is already happening, whether or not he had the shirt on. But that's interesting because this is important. If this guy is a range shooter, if that's actually him, how does that make sense? That doesn't mean he's good, but at least suggest he's practiced. And then we're going to talk about the fact that he missed a 130-meter shot, which doesn't seem and we'll show you right now, people arguing that's a very easy shot for somebody who's done this before. Again, this is the guy that they're showing, or at least, let's put it this way. This is the guy that was shot on that roof, according to the corporate media, according to the police that were there, and the image they put out. So does this guy look like that guy? I personally don't think so at all. Again, look at the hair color. Now, that could have changed. Maybe the light's changing it. But also, the point everyone's honing in on is the ear, which is his right ear, but this one you're looking at the left, but that, we'll show you more of it in a second. Doesn't really seem to line up. But that image right there also doesn't look like this guy. It also doesn't look like the other Matthew Crooks we're going to show you, who is still alive. Now, of course, BRICS News, which is in no way related to the BRICS movement at all, which clearly, I forget what it's connected to, but this account's already been called out for spreading egregious misinformation, which they have a right to, free speech, but they've been caught lying about important things more than once. But they simply say, just in, Thomas Matthew Crooks, a 20-year-old school shooter who tried to assassinate Trump, was featured in a BlackRock commercial in 2023, which, by the way, is interesting because BlackRock is very clearly connected to Trump things all over the place, was allowed to take over the Treasury during Trump's administration. And I mean, there's 1,000 ways that Trump overlaps with BlackRock. And it's just funny to me that it's about like a partisan idea to make it seem like that's like a Democrat thing. It's very strange to me. But the point is, this guy's video, but this is the guy who appears to be this guy. Right? That looks like that guy. But hard to tell. So let's just say, for sake of conversation, that's the guy they're pointing at. It appears he's in this BlackRock radio from 2023. But as we go through this, it seems to start to, the information develops more to suggest that neither of them are the guy we're talking about. Now, here is Dutchanese, who I respect his work, calling out Laura Loomer. And she's the one saying, same thing, exclusive, a thing other people have shared. Here's the BlackRock video with this guy, a BlackRock video. Now realize she's already deleted more than one tweet that she's been wrong about without noting on that. So let's pepper this with the possibility that she could be wrong again. Remember, she literally just got called out for posting a video about that Hawk Tuohy girl, claiming that she was saying something about Trump, and it's a 30-second clip. And if you listen to it, that's not even remotely what's actually happening. And one of her followers were like, Laura, that's not even what it says. And she goes, oh, you've corrected me. That's right. And I'm going like, how in the world did you even watch the 30-second video before you play the thing and misrepresent what it's about? Or was it just about getting clicks, or was it just about achieving a narrative? These people are not on your side, guys, whether it's because of their own incompetence or because they're doing something more nefarious. There's so many people out there that are constantly misleading you. The point, and again, let's just be very clear about this. I'm saying all of that independent of what's going on here, but on top of what's happened in the last couple of days. But that's not to say that Matthew Crook, is not the guy. That my point in all of this is that I don't think anybody knows just yet. But here is what Dutchanese has to say. And this is where this information really starts to line up. And very few people are making this point. He's just simply going, hey, Laura, I've already tried to show you this and you're not listening. He's claiming the shooter is a person named Maxwell Urick. He says the Crooks guy is still alive, which I'll show you. He's making videos and saying you got the wrong guy. Is still alive and had to set his Twitter profile protected after the shooting. Now, that could be because he's hiding something, or it could be because he was misidentified as a shooter of Donald Trump, and he's getting threatening messages and getting attacked. This has happened before. As I said recently, during the Boston bombing, people that were, social media people were sharing information that put out the false narrative, which even some corporate platforms said they put out the images of people that were not involved. And those people got a lot of negative attention. And you could argue this has happened many times throughout history where people have been misrepresented as involved with something and it ruins their lives. That's why we have to be responsible about this and not just rush to say what we want to say to get attention. But he says that he had to put his account unprotected. And I have seen his Facebook account discussed and I've seen his Instagram account discussed. But a lot of the ones that I'm seeing shared are just other accounts that use the name and even maybe use the picture, but you go back and look and it was created yesterday and it's got 4 shares. So the point is there's a lot of grifters out there trying to make things look the way they want them to. But he simply, and this is deleted now. Okay, this is frustrating, guys. Now I'm going to go through this more because there's other information that other than what he's saying. But now he may delete this because maybe that is false. But he's simply highlighting it, saying Crooks had blonde mullet hair, shooter completely dark hair. Here's the image overlap. Does appear to be similar. And the ear you can't see, but I'm going to show you something which is why I think there is an inconsistency to that. That guy does not appear to be that guy, and I'll show you that more. But he says, this makes you look really bad. All these people will be able to sue you if you don't correct soon. Maybe delete it because he didn't want to embarrass Laura. I don't know. But so here's where we go forward from this. Here's Riley Hallock. Let's see if they deleted it. Appears to still be there. He says, it's beginning to look like the media was wrong, which is just, I appreciate reporting like this because he's not saying, for sure. But he's saying Thomas Matthew Crooks is not the shooter, he's claiming. He's saying the shooter has the face of Maxwell Urich and the ear of Kenan Hooper, as Maxwell Urich has gauges. Something is not right with the mainstream media reporting. Cover up in progress. So what he's interestingly pointing out, and I'll play this video for you, is that this image from this reporting, this is back in 2017, saying Pittsburgh, so same location, Trump protesters sentenced to jail time. They're protesting Trump. Now, this is the guy they're showing, but the ear they're highlighting is this guy's. These are different people. So right there's an inconsistency even with that argument. So it just seems like none of this is really adding up, and maybe intentionally so. Here's what the next one shows. Here's Derek. I think I've got this. Yeah, right here. Next video. Derek's just simply highlighting the same kind of skepticism. He says, I am still seeing conflicting reports about whether the shooter was Thomas Matthew Crooks or Maxwell Urich. Crooks is a registered Republican, which is true, and Urich was an anti-Trump activist. Someone looking like Crooks has put out a video saying you got the wrong guy. Is anyone else anything more solid on this? Here's the one he's talking about. Now, here's what's important. This is why it's so infuriating that these kind of people we're highlighting are flooding the field with misinformation. And again, they have a right to do so because this image is this guy. Wherever it is, right here. Hold on. This image, this is the one that Laura Loomer and the rest of them are showing. That is that guy. That's the same shirt, same glasses, everything. And here he is posting a new video saying you got the wrong guy. So just because that's the video they're sharing does not mean this is the guy. This could very well be somebody completely not even connected to this. And we're using these names and that might even be him. You see what I'm saying? Because it's also up in the air. But here's what this video is saying, that you got the wrong guy.
My name is Thomas Matthew Crooks. I hate Republicans. I hate Trump. And guess what? You got the wrong guy.
Now, you could read into that and think he means that he's the guy, or you could simply read into it and think that he's laughing about the fact that because he hates Republicans, that they're all aiming at the wrong guy, like him, meaning him, that you think it's me and it's not me. And he's making fun of you. Either way, you could read that, right? But I think it's important to note is this guy made a video after the fact. So all these Loomers of the world that are saying he was the one that got shot, clearly they're wrong. So that could either mean that they're wrong and he is still the shooter, but he's alive, or it could mean that it's somebody else entirely. All sorts of manipulations going on. Now here, Wondering Jack Wolf says there's a Facebook account that seems to be claiming the same thing. Definitely questionable. This is literally all its content. So it could be a brand new account, right? That's also possible. But it simply says, just want to tell everyone it wasn't me. Which, if that's real, would suggest more that he's saying you got the wrong guy in the sense that you're aiming at him, but it wasn't even him. Now here, the Patriot Voice says, now it's being reported, and this is as of the 14th, as of 12:30 today, that Thomas Matthew Crooks is not the alleged shooter, and that it is a guy affiliated with Antifa, but not the same guy. Mark Violets, they said was Antifa, turned out to be Matt Violi or whatever, and he's not even Antifa, not even the right guy. Now he's saying it's a different Antifa guy that was actually arrested back in 2016 for being involved in anti-Trump protests in Pittsburgh. They're talking about these guys. See how muddled this all is? It doesn't have to be that way, guys. Now, I'm not saying you have a right to stand up and say whatever you want, but when I'm talking about the people that present themselves as journalists, reporters, aggregators of information, that jump to and say things that they can't back up. You have a right to do it, but you should be embarrassed by continuing to do that. And all that does is, first of all, makes it very difficult for those of us trying to be objective to present ourselves as objective when we're talking about things like this because of people like you, but it also makes it confusing for average people just trying to find the truth. And so they end up settling for people that they want to blindly trust, which, by the way, perfectly promotes the corporate media narrative agenda. It very much does. They want you to lean into the partisanship and pick someone to trust. That is how they manipulate you. That's what these people are whether they know it or not, they're promoting that mainstream agenda. But he goes on to say his name is Maxwell Yerrick, which is the guy they're highlighting here. Kenan Hooper, and Matthew Yerrick. So he's a guy, a real person. He was sentenced to 3 to 12 months in jail after protesting and so on. He says, I don't know who is the true shooter at this point, and it seems like we are being intentionally confused about it. That does kind of feel like what's going on right now. He says, we know they are going to wipe this person's entire history, which I don't know, we say we know that. Whether maybe we're being misled about the fact that it even happened, right? Let's not constantly jump into the idea of like picking between their presented narratives. It's just as likely this was completely manufactured, which I know is not supposed to be said out loud. Of course, that's possible. But he says, side note, Maxwell has viable gauges in his ears and his mug. Now they are closed up. As an American citizen, he says, I'm calling on the FBI, DHS, and DOJ to designate Antifa as a terrorist organization. Why would that be your jump when you can't even verify this guy's even connected yet? And you even pointed that out. Now, frankly, I think Antifa and things like the Patriot Front or any other overlapping groups are, whether they're FBI or some kind of organized government, and I think we're being manipulated. I really do. I think that's pretty damn obvious. They're all weirdly, it's like they just have, here's Antifa with their black head covers and khakis on or whatever it is. They're all black. Then you got the same seemingly setup with the same head covers, but here's khakis though. So we're the right version. Here's the left version. It's either lazy or just that's how stupid they think we are, but people fall for it. And again, that's not to say that they're not actually doing things, and maybe they should be labeled as such, but just realize where it comes from, in my opinion, at the very least, and open an immediate investigation. He says, I to not do so would be to be complicit in these heinous acts, he says. Now, again, they're highlighting this whole ear thing, but what's weird to me is, again, you look and you can see that that's the ear of this guy, not the guy they're claiming it is. Very mixed up, isn't it? Now, let's talk about the partisan manipulation and just the skepticism that we should all rightly have in all of this. I'm going to leave some of these up for pointing back to. So, David Icke said this. This was today. The perception control of taking sides is on public display after the Trump shooting. Those on the Trump supporting right ask no questions. And this is, I would argue it's not. I think he's doing the same thing I would frame it as, which is like the partisanship and the two-party illusion, which I actually am of the mind that maybe the majority of conservatives or Democrats, or rather liberals, aren't really buying into a lot of the narratives at this point, but they're still conservative, still liberal. But when I say like the Republicans and Democrats, I'm talking about the two-party illusion, which I think a lot of those same people don't really identify with anymore. So I'm just making clear that it's not all Republicans when I say that. It's or all conservatives, rather. And I think he's kind of doing the same thing. He's simply saying that those on the Trump supporting right ask no questions when they would normally do so. And rightly, after a school shooting, etc. He's right. A lot of them are seemingly, not all of them, but just kind of going, this is a shooting and we need to support him because Trump's a hero, and just kind of not really pushing into it when they would, except for those that sorry, I'm mixing it up. He simply says that they're not asking questions except for those that confirm their belief system. Then he goes, meanwhile, the Trump-hating left claim that the shooting was staged. The Trump-supporting right condemns such claims when, had it been Biden, they would have been the ones asking the same questions. And we all kind of know that. Deciding a situation by reflex action based on your side, which I was just highlighting, which is what they want from you, and these partisan liars are the ones kind of pushing you into that, whether they know it or not. He says there's no way to establish the truth about anything. Proper researchers don't take sides which can skew their perceptions and ask all the necessary questions before reaching their conclusions. Yeah, welcome to the Daily Wrap-Up. That's what we do. He says dispassionate forensic calm is how you reach the truth in any situation, not emotional reaction based on preconceived political or religious beliefs. He says, I'm not saying that the shooting was not genuine in whatever sense that turns out to be, nor that the protection squad do not have many questions to answer. He says, I'm saying that we cannot pick and choose what we question and when we don't, if we have any interest in establishing the truth in any situation. So he's like, I'm not even saying what I think happened. He's just acknowledging, just like we have been doing, that this is what's happening right now is demonstrating what we're all trying to highlight as the problem for those of us that see beyond the two-party illusion. It is dangerous. It's irresponsible. And yes, they have a right to do it. But if we want to change anything, we have to be able to stand back and recognize that those people do not deserve your respect. He says, if the questions are not valid, then they will be shown to be so, and we get closer to the truth that way. Not asking them and seeing if the answers stand up to scrutiny is the way we have been scammed over and over, generation after generation. Asking questions should never be condemned, no matter if you agree with them or not. Exactly. Been down this road and it doesn't work. He clearly questions Trump and Alex and Tucker and all that whole thing, and I do too. Now here is his son saying, Gareth Ike saying, seen quite a lot of people being jumped on for questioning the Trump shooting. Several tweets claiming it's disrespectful. That's usually the route they take, an emotional route. He says, I remember the exact same response when people questioned 9/11, 7/7, and October 7th in the immediate aftermath. How dare you suggest logical questions? He says, no one knows the facts right now, and the only way to get to them is to ask questions and dig a bit. Are those Trump supporters that are claiming it's disrespectful to question? Honestly, suggesting that were if Biden punching the air beneath the American flag, like point being, if it was Biden, they would of course be saying we need to ask questions. He says with blood across his face that they wouldn't be questioning events. Obviously they would. Now here's what Derek was saying. This was, I believe, yesterday, saying, I'm just going to say it. I don't trust this. And I feel the exact same way, by the way. That could mean that Trump was still being taken advantage of, or maybe Trump was the target of an assassination attempt, or rather an agenda that put him in the midst of it. Maybe he's not involved. But the point being is there's obviously something wrong here. I know that's commonly what you'll hear from a lot of people in a lot of these events, but you know from my past work that I'm very skeptical about, very cautious about leaning into just kind of blatantly saying this is something that's wrong, or they're lying, or it's a psyop, or whatever. But as just what we've gone through, right at the moment, the evidence does not support this. There's inconsistencies here. Now, maybe tomorrow there'll be information that comes out that fills those gaps, and I'll be okay. Well, there you go. The story fits together. But as of right now, I'm with Derek. I don't trust this. There's something wrong going on. Too early to say for sure, he says, but I don't see this being good either way. He says either staged, designed to create more sympathy for Trump before he comes in and implements the great inversion, fake awakening, or potentially real and will be blamed on leftists and used to justify more government in some capacity. Now, alternatively, you could argue the same in reverse. Of course, it could be a Trump hater radicalized by the media's representation of him that decided to take action, and that should be blamed on them. Right? That's not that they are legally responsible, but we have to take account for the fact that what you're doing is hurting people. Not in the sense they're using to try to shut us down. My point is they have a right to do it. But my point is always, with free speech or anything else, they have a right to do it, but you have a right to say you're disgusting. Call them out for it. Or it could be some actual attack from somebody within the paradigm trying to take out Donald Trump. Those are also just as likely. But this person follows up and says, do you know how hard it is to hit a guy at 100 yards? Well, as I understand it, and I've spoken to more than one person who is a sniper, it's apparently not that hard. At least if you're in any way practiced. But he says the best shooters have one MOA group that's 1 inch at 100 yards. That means they hit Trump with a head of 1 out of every 3 shots. Now, again, I'm not an expert here, but that's not what I'm hearing from other people. Basically saying that the idea is that if it was a staged event, then the guy had to be amazing to make sure he hits his ear. Well, again, isn't that a little assumptive? What if there wasn't even a shot? What if that was something else going on? And I'll get into those theories in a second. But Derek simply says there's also the possibility that the ear injury is not from the gun. Exactly. But of course, that's ridiculous. And people commenting, and then we'll get to the photo of the bullet, which we'll show in a second more, which I don't know, guys. The FBI associated entity is claiming this, but am I crazy, or that does not look real to me? We'll get to that in a second. But I don't know. I'm not an expert on photography either, so it very well could be. But the idea in here, just because there's a bullet flying through the air, it also doesn't mean that. Again, it could be like a 1% possibility, but we can't, these people that just want to dismiss possibilities when nobody has the full picture because they're convinced, that's what's called false certainty, in my opinion. And it is everywhere in partisanship. Here's Blake Hall, which, by the way, weirdly enough, is the founder and CEO of ID.me, which we were literally just talking about, your digital identity wallet. Not that that has to be connected. I just found that an interesting point. But He's saying, I was the sniper employment officer for my battalion and led hundreds of combat missions. There were major security lapses in the security plan that allowed the shooter to engage with Trump from 130 meters. An easy shot, he says. And this is one example online, but I'm talking about people that, like, I'm actually going to point out in a minute, not to say that Brad Miller commented on the sniper part of it, but that he believes this is something that we're being lied to. And I hold his opinion in high regard. My point is there's people online, there are the people that I've spoken to that are saying from a shooting perspective that this is not a difficult shot if you're in any way practiced. But he says, how can the dude at the cookout spot the shooter before the detail? I agree. The far rooftop is an obvious firing position. Local police should have been deployed to secure it, and none of them did. These are all the points you've already made. He says there's a sniper team scanning the rooftop for threats, but the team only has long guns. You generally want a security element co-located with assault rifles that can engage much faster, especially with 300 meters. They could engage fast enough. But he says they neutralized the target, but not before he wounded President Trump, if that's what happened, killed an innocent civilian, and seriously wounded 2 more. Good shooting. But gross failures in the plan meant that they were too slow to detect the threat. Mission failure. That's his opinion. Consider it. Now, this is the kind of thing that frustrates me. I've over the last so many years, I've come to appreciate Glenn Greenwald's work more, but there's still things that I'm very suspicious about, to be honest. But at the same time, this is the kind of thing that I have such a problem with, especially as there's some of the ones that at certain times, whether it's during, like right now, he's clearly calling out what's going on with Israel, which makes you go, okay, maybe they can kind of see beyond the mainstream narratives. But a lot of these people that are higher up in the hierarchy of media, they have a weird block when it comes to what they perceive as conspiracy theory in a lot of sense. So right now, or at least when he posted this yesterday, what was trending was staged. One of them anyway. Clearly talking about Trump and whether this event was staged. A lot of more Republicans than you'd believe I see saying that. But here's what he says. Very healthy populace that has been cultivated. So let's be clear. You can say it's wrong because there's no way anybody could truly know it at that point, or most likely not. But that goes for you too, Glenn. Nobody really knows. So why is it unhealthy to simply promote a possibility that is just as likely as anything else? It's because that's conspiracy theory. I mean, that's the only way I can read this, which upset me because I've seen him at least point out things that others would call conspiracy theory. And I'm just tired of this childish dismissal of things based on the idea that something's a conspiracy, like things are like, which is a legitimate thing that happens in the world where people in power conspire to manipulate you and you theorize about how that's happening. That's only ridiculous because of the narrative around what that word or phrase is supposed to mean. For him to say it's unhealthy, or a suggestion that it's unhealthy to point out that it might have been staged, is, in my opinion, a weakness. It is a mental block, because obviously that's possible. Whether it's 1% or 99%, it's clearly possible. Weird. When this person says, what does that mean? They think it was staged. And he says, yes, don't click on the trending word unless you want to puke. All viral tweets like this. It says it looks very staged, sound like a BB gun. Nobody in the crowd is running or panicking. Nobody in the crowd has heard a gun. Why is that wrong, Glenn? He's not saying, look, there's a lot of people that I would point out and say disgusting who are going, we know this and we know that. This person's simply going, here's my opinion. Why is that wrong, Glenn? I really want people to think about that. It's wrong to express what you think if it's outside of a selected area of allowable opinion? Doesn't that make you just as bad as the other people, Glenn, that you're pointing out around NewsGuard and the rest? Yes. It's just a little bit more extreme for you, but recognize it's the same conversation. We're getting there. Maybe if they're honest, they'll see that. But my point is that's a problem. Yes, you can ask these questions, guys. Always ask these questions. Now, Brad Miller, in response to Shannon Joy, I should say that first, simply says, am I the only person in the world who's skeptical about this whole thing? Which I'm not very familiar with their work. I follow her. I've seen some things she's done that I appreciate, but not somebody I keep tabs on. My point, though, is that ultimately, there seem to be a lot more people than they're highlighting that actually are very skeptical about this. From within the Republican side, from people that are nonpartisan, all over the map. So no, Shannon, I agree with you. There's a lot of people that are going, there's something off about this. Just skeptical. Skepticism is very healthy in every context. And Brad Miller, I just did that, responded to this. And again, we just interviewed with Brad Miller the second time. Very intelligent person, very objective, very intelligent when it comes to this conversation. He's military. And he said, I think it was scripted. There's a lot of things that point in that direction, by the way. And he says, my assumption is they've already selected Trump to be the president, which is something he and I agree on. We talked about it in this discussion, and are merely building the narrative to accompany the stage management. Now, yes, that gets into a pretty specific opinion that people love to call conspiracy theory. It's definitely a theory, and it is a theory about people that are conspiring to manipulate you, but the term is used in a way that means fake or derogatory. And this person says the same thing. As a conspiracy theory, in quotes, realist, with a very high proven success rate, and I respect your valued work, this is a stretch. But again, it's just him presenting his opinion about this. I think it was scripted. So it's funny how people that are even self-described conspiracy theorists are going, well, hold on, that's a bit too far. I just don't understand that logic. It's broken. It's just another theory. But he says people say that initially about every op. Anyway, my point is, whatever his logic in, maybe we can get him in and talk about it. He's a very intelligent person, and I hold his opinion in high regard. So him saying that, I think you should consider it. I mean, I already am in the same field. And realizing scripted could mean any number of things. It could even mean not involving Trump. But just consider that possibility. Now, here's another one. Jeff Berwick, point simply goes, well, here you go. Trump supposedly shot at the rally. Puts his hand on his ear and face, then blood on his ear and face. The old World Wrestling Federation trick. He was part of the WWF. Oldest of the book, or oldest of the old. Excuse me. Pardon me. Getting choked. He says, all part of the Jones Plantation show. He says he raises a fist as he's carried off. What a show. Well, I'll have to look into the details as they come out. For now, it looks staged. His opinion. But just considering the thing we were talking about, the idea that, again, if he's facing, if his head is in the way of the ear that was apparently shot by the guy across the field, I think that really continues to stand out as one of the most obvious anomalies in all this. Puts his hand on, comes away with blood. But I didn't see blood on his hand, but I did seem to see it between his finger and his thumb. Maybe there's something, I don't know. I don't think this is exactly what happened, but just continuing to hypothesize about what he's suggesting. And there's some things that would line up with that. Shiva definitely thinks it's staged. Now, his post is funny. He comes out and says, which one is staged? I can see why some may wonder. And he simply, for the podcast, shows a bunch of different versions at WWF where he's pumping his fist in the air, which, that's not necessarily provable in any way, but something to consider. Same kind of fist bump or fist idea. So the suggestion from all these people is that might be fake. Here is Derek Bros saying this, and this is back to that same point. So with what they're saying, Derek says, the video appears to show the Secret Service snipers on the roof facing the direction of the shooter. How can they be up there and not see the man laying with the gun? After everything else we've already heard as well, revisiting this point with people telling them from multiple directions, we see them on the roof. Multiple people telling police and Secret Service, they both said that, minutes, if not more, beforehand. Then the one guy said they had multiple people that were looking for the guy. At this point, no one said a word, and the third point was that they shot. And these people there were like, we can see the guy. Then you hear shots fire out. And they said, he's turning toward me. And then with that last pop, they say he was shot. But that doesn't line up with the other side of the narrative where they're claiming they were responding to the shooting. And that was what took him out. But my point is, you can see this very clearly where the guy responds to the shooting. Right there. Again, either the very first shot was Trump's sniper or it was at the same time. And somehow didn't kill this guy, didn't take him out, and it took all the shots beforehand. I mean, none of this really seems to add up. Same point. Now, here is an interesting point, which, in my opinion, seems to at least continue to point in the direction that this was something that was kind of being predictive programmed, social engineered, laying out the breadcrumbs. Or this guy just got very lucky. Or he's actually prophesizing about something. The point is, he says in March, Brandon Biggs claimed to have had a vision of the future, including a very specific assassination attempt on Trump, which would literally graze his ear, and even points to the same ear, which I find very interesting.
Bringing back America, because the Lord told me, he said, I am not done with America. He said there's going to be a new wave of patriotism coming out, and that's whenever I saw Trump, and I saw a red wave coming out of Michigan, and then I saw Oklahoma, and there was.
Did you love this? So God's telling him there's going to be a red wave. I'm sorry if I find that really stupid.
Members of people, and they were all on they had torches all throughout Oklahoma, and they were raising up these torches that looked like fire, and they were bringing forth a new patriotism upon the nation, and it was being birthed, and it just kept spreading like fire all throughout America, all throughout. And I saw Trump rising up, and then I saw an attempt on his life. This bullet flew by his ear, and it came so close to his head that it busted his eardrum. And I saw.
Now, whether that ended up being reported or not would be pretty interesting, right? If suddenly it comes out that, oh yeah, that, also my eardrum was affected or something like that.
He fell to his knees during this time frame, and he started worshiping the Lord. He got radically born again during this time frame. I'm talking. People say he's saved now, but he becomes really on fire for Jesus, for what I saw coming. And then I saw.
God, this Trump worship is just so alarming. Or worship, this statist worship of any ruler is quite alarming to me. It's blind support. It's my point is always, whether it's religious Zionists, whatever, how do you argue against somebody claiming this is God sent? What if I disagree with that? Now you're blasphemous. Like this is irrational. Now maybe you're right, and I'm challenging what God said, but the point is there's no dynamic there where we can have an honest conversation about that. Because if I challenge you, I'm the enemy to you, which is exactly the point. This is in March. This guy's, it is possible these things could happen. Maybe he's put out 14 different prophecies, and that's the one that's accurate. I mean, the point is we don't really know. But at the end of the day, if you believe this is more about being staged, then that seems interesting, about kind of setting the breadcrumbs to what's about to happen, which is usually how these events go if they're manipulated. But again, my thought, I don't put too much credence in that. But he does have the video discussing this. I think that was right here. Man, I hate how that happens. YouTube is such crap. I had it paused, but it just randomly starts playing on its own and goes through like 3 different videos before we get, oh yeah, and look, I can't even go back. Look at that. It won't even let me zoom back to the video that was there. YouTube. A lot of this stuff is really manipulative. Here's the one I had open. Why would it not let you go back to what I originally opened? I'm telling you, it's very strange, these things. But that's the video. Trump shot, prophecy fulfilled. Predictions, Trump must know by 2 prophets. So guys, let's not forget again. Trump called himself the chosen one. Israel and a lot of their religious Zionist aspects to think he's somehow like the prophet or the God said. It's alarming. And don't forget, this has been what Q and the rest of these people really flirting with, the idea that somehow it's some kind of God religious overlap. Let's not forget about how that ties back to intelligence. And there's no way Israel, Zionism, and they're not involved in all of that. There's a reason this is being pushed. Now, to this shot, I just want, give me your thoughts on this. I just do not think that looks like what you would, is that supposed to be a bullet? And ask yourself, how does that, if that he's shot on the right side of his right ear, does that look like that's flying on the right side of his ear? No, that looks like it's further close. But again, it's a camera shot. Who knows? Now, looking at this, it doesn't appear to be AI, but it's hard to tell. I just don't think this looks legitimate. The first thing I saw that, I'm like, oh, come on. Now, somebody even posted this already, then deleted it. So maybe they even thought it was fake. I don't know. But here is the Times, the New York Times. Photo appears, it's a weird way to frame that, to capture path of bullet. And it says, Michael Harrigan, a retired FBI special agent, so you know you can trust him, guys, said the image captured by Doug Mills, a New York Times photographer, also means you can trust him, seems to show the bullet. Why are they even framing it like that if they're telling us it's the bullet? Streaking past Donald Trump. The point is they're claiming that the air was manipulated by the bullet. That's what you're seeing. I don't know, guys. I just don't think that looks real. But you guys can tell me what you think. I'm not an expert in these things, so I don't know. But all that behind us, the theorizing, different things. Let's talk about to last 3 segments here to talk about this. How kind of the foreknowledge aspect, a little bit of the detail, the involvement of Trump, the conversation of what else was it? The kind of the partisan overlaps as well. So here's Sean Davis saying a source familiar with Trump's security detail, which again, all of this stuff, like my point in saying that about the New York Times, or the FBI, or It's if you're of the mind that this is some sort of like a nonpartisan perspective, this is a government manipulation for some other larger end, it would be easy to utilize their propaganda platforms to do just that. Think about that. I don't know why we would trust the FBI, the New York Times, or anybody else involved in this. But, and again, the FBI, a group that is clearly called out routinely by people within the paradigm. It's just funny how these things, they ignore certain things when it suits certain interests. But Davis says a source familiar with Trump's security details, so who knows if they're lying about it, tells the Federalist that the former and future president's detail, so Trump, has been asked for beefed up protection and resources for weeks, but has been rebuffed time and again. Now, that could mean that they knew this was going to happen, but if that's the case, why wouldn't they have been pulled entirely? Right? I mean, the argument is that's sort of what they tried to do during the lawsuits and stuff. They said they should be pulling his detail, which did happen. But if the argument is that they were, I don't know, they can't, these half measures about what kind they tried didn't happen, but then it went forward. It certainly could mean that it was a clumsy narrative or clumsy agenda. But I just don't think that lines up with what would normally happen. But simply saying he asked beefed up, which he did. But that could be for any number of obvious reasons, because clearly, and also to make it seem as if he is being persecuted, right? But he says DHS, which oversees Secret Service protective detail, quote, wasn't responsive to those requests. And he says, when Biden's regime behind the attack, or was Biden behind the attack, or did it deliberately do everything it could to allow it to happen? There's questions. Ask those questions. Certainly possible. Jimmy Dore highlights what Useless Tree says. I live in a city where Marine One used to land George W. and Obama for fundraisers. It witnessed it, and this is important actually. It witnessed its firsthand 3 times. The Secret Service would search every. Excuse me, I just didn't read that right. He witnessed it firsthand 3 times. The Secret Service would search every newspaper stand, put tarps over fences, have snipers on the roofs of adjacent apartment buildings, have snipers looking at windows of adjacent apartment buildings, all for a Marine One landing. Not Air Force One, Marine One, walked to the limo, the departure of the motorcade, and took less than 5 minutes. They would tow all cars from the adjacent lot. They would sweep the streets for a mile for bombs the previous day. For there not to have been a Secret Service agent on this roof is a massive tell. The rest of the story is even worse. I happen to agree with this. I mean, there's just no way that could have been forgotten about. As Jimmy Dore says, Trump was denied beefed up security and there weren't Secret Service on the roof surrounding the rally. Secret Service ignored people telling them. I mean, this is reminiscent of like a Lahaina thing where they're like warning people and telling them. That all seems very coordinated. Here, Glenn Greenwald highlights this point about so you got the media coming out and a lot of politicians, the Pelosi's of the world, right? Coming out and going, oh, I feel for Trump and this is not okay. We should never allow this, right? But 30 seconds ago, they were saying he was the devil, a threat to democracy, Hitler embodied. So now you're happy Hitler's okay? Like, the point is either they didn't mean anything they were ever saying, which is really where I usually lean. They're all just saying what they need to say to get you to think what they want you to think or to achieve their own personal agendas. And a lot of them do generally hate each other, but it's bigger than that. Or saying that he hope he's okay is the political moment. Secretly hating him, but going out and going, we hope he's okay because you know that's going to benefit you. Either way, Glenn says, I still don't understand the response of Democrat officials and liberal pundits. If Trump is Hitler, as you can see things like this, ridiculous, the New Republic, here's New York Post, Maddow, AOC, among liberal media and Dem lawmakers who worry Trump will jail them in massive camps if he wins. Jail them in camps. How stupid is that? And it says, if Trump is Hitler, I shouldn't say not in the sense that our government wouldn't do that, but the idea of like a half narrative, the Democrats, the Republicans. I mean, it's, in my opinion, wildly naive. It's obvious that it's not one side or the other. But anyway, he says, if Trump is Hitler, who will build concentration camps for his critics and who will build these camps for his critics and never permit another election, all of which they claim, why would they lament the attack and pray for his recovery? Seems really stupid, doesn't it? And here's the same point from Dave Smith. How the F can you say he's literally Hitler and democracy is on the line, but wish him a speedy recovery and political violence is never acceptable? In fact, everything this government does is political violence all around the world. It says if you have been saying any of that insane stuff, then at least have the integrity to admit that this is a logical conclusion of your lies. Yep, that's what our government does, or our media. They radicalize people and then point at us telling the truth for radicalizing people. Steve L. Miller, same point. Every Democrat media outlet tonight is, thank God Hitler is okay and wishing Hitler a speedy recovery. Now, from his perspective, I think he's trying to make it sound as if, oh, no, it looks like he is Fox News, so they're just making fun of him then. The point is that you're calling him Hitler, but you're hoping he's okay. It's pretty stupid. Here is Speaker Johnson. The House will conduct a full investigation of the tragic events today, which I guarantee will amount to nothing unless this is about some kind of show, because these people never really seem to do much. He says the American people deserve to know the truth. We will have Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle and other appropriate officials from DHS and FBI appear for a hearing before our committees ASAP. And as Chris Martin says, ooh, a hearing. Or this person says, anything else on Israel's genocide? That's not getting any conversation. That's Gerald Celente. The point is, most Republicans hate Mike Johnson. I don't think this guy is even legit. Obviously, in my opinion, they're all the same. But the way this is being presented, to me, this is a fruitless effort. And we've seen so many of these ridiculous hearings that say a lot of things, but nothing actually happens. Now, whether Cheadle herself gets thrown under the bus, which is usually how these things go, it never really addresses the real picture. That's usually what I expect. We'll wait and see. But don't worry, guys. Don't worry. Everything's under control because the FBI has taken the lead. Doesn't that make us feel better? Why would it? You know, the FBI has been manufacturing events since its existence, its creation. But the FBI takes the lead on the investigation of Trump. The FBI has assumed the role of lead federal law enforcement agency investigating Donald Trump. And as Sal Diagra says, every time, say the line, FBI, he was on our radar. How much you want to bet we get something like that soon enough? Yeah, we were looking into him and we had 3 meetings with him and we gave him some money one time. But totally, we missed it. And, pretty much every time it seemed, but we'll wait and see. Now, another overlap, interesting theory, which is a lot of what this stuff is. MoFit Tech Trade says, is this why there was an assassination attempt on Donald Trump just now? Highlights this from before, saying Trump's criticism of Israel's Netanyahu draws strong condemnation from GOP rivals. I don't think so, but it's something to consider. My opinion, it's more likely that they would do this to get him elected, right? I'll show you at the end, this is driving unparalleled support to Donald Trump, just like I said it would yesterday. But one of the things to consider, certainly, that would be something they're capable of. Now, here is a really disgusting display from corporate media, ABC, where they simply, as you'd expect, from a partisan perspective, but still important to highlight, that essentially it's their fault, right? Trump supporters and their dangerous rhetoric are what caused this. Pretty clearly, if you're going to take a partisan side, it would be the fact that they're calling him Hitler that would drive somebody to do this if that's what really happened. Frankly, I think it's far more likely the original things we talked about in regard to this being a government thing or some kind of a staged idea. But listen to what they had to say.
We have to point out, no matter who the shooter, what the shooter's motives were, no matter who the shooter is, you are going to hear conspiracy theories going forward.
Now, right out of the gate, now that's the tail end of what they were talking about. The next was where we get into the next point, but I just can't stand this conversation. So what they're saying, mind you, is at a time when even they're admitting, developing situation. We're getting more information. We're still fleshing this out. And you come out and go, what about this possibility? And they go, oh, conspiracy theory. You're not allowed to consider that, even though we don't know what's happened yet. Isn't that the most glaring example of how stupid this all is? Well, you don't even know yet. And you're Xing out possibilities, even though it may seem, the point is there are certain types of conversations that are just labeled as conspiracy. A foreign government took action and took him out, or unless they decide to make that point. It's just they must be able to recognize how stupid that is. Or they're that dumb, I don't know. But my point is, obviously, theories about what's happening at a time before we've figured it out are completely allowable, and they always are, no matter what's going on. You're allowed to consider alternative possibilities, seeing as how you guys are some of the biggest misinformation spreaders on the planet. But here's the point they're getting into.
No question about that. But as you point out those statements from J.D. Vance and Vivek Ramaswamy, of course, President Trump and his supporters have contributed to this violent rhetoric as well.
Well,
contributed to the violent rhetoric. So all that is to say is that, okay, so what they say might have been behind what's going on here or played a part. So you're simply pointing out that in some way, almost in a way saying like it's almost justified. They didn't say that, but that you're kind of blaming the victim here, you understand? That's what that is. and saying that they're, because of their rhetoric, which they call dangerous, which of course they're misrepresenting, which he's about to read off, about saying we're going to bring in bloodshed and danger. If you heard, look, I am no fan of Trump, and I'm not defending him because I don't think he's on your side. But how often they just completely misrepresent what he says. Usually what he's highlighting is what they're doing, to, lying about this, destroying this election, it's going to bring bloodshed. Like, he's talking about that in an obvious sense that we can all see. That's going to cause conflict. Not to say that I'm going to cause bloodshed because of what you're doing. It's a childlike, willful ignorance. You can't pretend that's what he meant, but they always do. Right? And so that's what he's getting into. And she's about to read the things that are supposed to justify that it's kind of their fault.
Absolutely, George. We were just looking back this morning at some of the things that former President Trump has said. He warned last March of potential death and destruction if he were charged by the Manhattan District Attorney. Our country is being destroyed as they tell us to be peaceful. Trump in January warned of bedlam in the country if the criminal charges against him succeeded. And of course, in March, he said, now, if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole. That's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That will be the least of it. He said he was partly joking and that was taken out of context. But those are indeed his words. And you have heard it from supporters as well. And supporters are certainly in some parts angry. And let's remember January 6th. In so many ways for the campaign, January 6th will probably be in the background after yesterday's event. This is a very difficult time for this campaign. I'm sure this week in Milwaukee that President Trump will highlight this, and President Biden is going to have to figure out how to go forward with his campaign and what exactly they say.
Martha Raddatz, thanks very much. Let's bring in
we have an interesting development to the previous stories. But anyway, just that point right there is just simply, again, what she's saying is
yesterday's event. This is a very difficult time for this campaign.
Overall, that, same point. I was trying to recapitulate the end point, but, mentions January 6th, constantly trying to highlight that this is somehow, their dangerous rhetoric that's caused this, which is just, it's very irresponsible to say that. Here's what my brother just sent me. This is being reported by Larry Elder. I just looked this up. I want to try to find the actual article. Here we go. No, is that it? Here's this report here. What it's saying is apparently a local police officer, let me check Google's side of it as well. Doesn't seem to be coming up with that exact. Oh yeah, this is it right here. Okay, so the Gazette and a lot of other platforms you just saw, this is from Denver. Local officer encountered gunman just before he shot towards Trump. Wow. So check this out. That's what it says. We said one officer climbed the roof, which is, by the way, what we keep hearing, encountered Crooks, who, assuming that's who this is yet, I'm still, remember, that's completely up in the air, it seems, who pointed his rifle at the officer. The officer then retreated down the ladder we just showed you, by the way, earlier in the show, and Crooks quickly took a shot towards Trump. My God, if that's actually true, that's either the most shocking example of cowardice, but by the way, we kind of tend to see a lot with these school shootings, if that's actually what happened, where they just don't go in when they're supposed to. But again, you should ask whether that was actually more of an agenda. I'm not saying I think that, which is one of the possibilities. My point is that my God, either shocking cowardice as somebody whose job it is to take action here, or that you were supposed to let that happen. I don't really know. But here's what's crazy is that this lines up with a lot of what we've already heard. Multiple people looking for the guy without notifying Secret Service. There's no way that lines up. Then this guy actually goes up to where they're all pointing, which does make sense, seeing as how they're all like, he's right there, he's right there. The guy points at him and he backs away, and that's when the shot fires. Now, how does that line up with the snipers on Trump's side? Shooting first or looking in that same direction, or that Trump was facing the wrong direction and his right ear was somehow hit while this guy's on the other side. It just doesn't really make sense to me. Let's read what this says. Not long before shots rang out, rally-goers noticed a man climbing the top roof of a nearby building, and they warned law enforcement. We've already seen that. One officer climbed to the roof and encountered him, who pointed his rifle. The officer went down the ladder, and then he shot Trump. And that's when the U.S. Secret Service counter snipers shot him. But that doesn't seem to line up at all with what we just saw. Said, and this is according to the officials who spoke with AP. Of course, on a condition of anonymity. Yeah, that usually gives you a good feeling of honesty, doesn't it? Why would you be speaking on a condition of anonymity about this event? This is not some foreign policy, it's national security thing. Doesn't that scream dishonesty? I think we're being lied to. I really do. Everything in me tells me there's something about this. I don't know what part, all of it maybe, that we're being deceived about. Here's what this says. Let's read this. Sources tell AP a local law enforcement officer encountered the gunman, same point, on the heels of an attempt to kill Trump. Shocked leaders across the political divide. A former fire chief attending the rally with his family was killed. Oh, wow. Where'd that come from? A former fire chief attending the rally. So that may be one of the people that were killed. 2 other people were also critically wounded. So yeah, apparently that was the guy that was killed. If this reporting is accurate, right? We should be taking everything with a grain of salt right now. But that's a former fire chief. The presumptive Republican presidential nominee said the upper part of his right ear was pierced in the shooting. Okay, see, here's what's interesting to me. We already showed you these images. Does that, okay, let's grab that real quick. Is that what that looks like to you? I believe I still have that. Hold on. I don't have to go back and grab it if I don't have it. Yeah, I think that's the image I used right here. Yeah, okay. Now, okay, that's the small spot that we were talking about right there. That if that his hair is kind of covering it, but that would be a pretty tiny nick on the top of his cartilage. But again, that would bleed like crazy. If you ever cut your ear, you know that bleeds like bleeds crazy. Bleeds crazy. So it's saying his ear was pierced in the shooting, the upper part of his right ear. So it does line up, I guess, if you think that's what that shows right there, but it's kind of hard to tell. In other shots, it doesn't even look like his ear it looks like his ear is intact in other shots. That's just my perception. It could be easily wrong. But it says, I knew immediately that something was wrong in that I heard a whizzing sound, shots, and immediately felt the bullet rip through skin. That was what Trump said. Okay, here's the fire chief. Orwell just sent me this. We pray for the loved ones and friends of former volunteer fire chief Corey Comparator, who was senselessly killed at President Trump's rally yesterday. Okay, you know what's actually this important? That actually the shirt he's wearing does seem to look like the shirt that was. I was trying to look to see if I could tell the shirt and color of what he was wearing. So that appears. You know, but isn't that straight? By the way, that would be the guy that Laura Loomer was pointing to when she said that was the shooter. See how irresponsible that is? But why would they? It seems like a weird thing to do, to drag him out like that, to carry him his arm, and why wouldn't they get a stretcher? I don't know. This whole thing just seems very strange to me. That was very kind of disrespectful the way they carried that body out. Anyway, that's sad. A random person gets shot behind this, especially if it's an agenda. But back to this. Bullet ripped through the skin. Then it says much bleeding took place, which, by the way, did not. It really didn't. There's very minimal blood when it comes to what we can see. And we're talking like well after the fact when he's walking down the stage. At that point, it would have been a lot, in my opinion. But again, there's always another point to make. Maybe he's taking medications that makes his blood not bleed as much. I don't know. There's always some, just never jump to conclusions, right? We can talk about all kinds of assumptions, but we have to make sure we always keep the door open for something that might be an alternative. But it says, in a subsequent social post, he said, it was God alone, as we already highlighted. In this moment, it's more important than ever that we stand united and show our true character as Americans, remaining strong and determined and not allow evil to win, which I think is very clear will be, whether he means it or not, interpreted as the Democrats. His wife shared with me that he had done, let's see, FBI identified the shooter as Thomas Matthew Crooks. That's pretty much, I guess that's just the main part in the end. Yeah, and it just goes on to some background. So the point to say is that they're reporting that one of these officers literally walked up there and then walked back down and allowed that shooting to take place. That's a pretty big deal. If we had nothing else, you could just call it cowardice. And maybe it is. But with everything else we're seeing, that was, whether by accident or not, an allowable moment to carry out the event. Something to consider. Now, where were we here? Oh, yeah. So back to this. So blaming it on them was the point. You know, the racist Republicans and their bad speech causing these people to act, right? Well, no, that would be your responsibility for the way you frame Trump and force people to think he's some kind of living embodiment of evil, which, by the way, they do the same in reverse, mind you. But as she mentions January 6th, of course, she's acting like, okay, that's going to be a backdrop to the election now. Why does that have anything to do with anything? Why? Because they're just trying to jam together as that they're racist and that's all the same thing, which is not even the case. Let's remember why January 6th was so important. Because a failed false flag meant to blame Russia and you as Americans using the CIA-grown Azov movement. And I covered this again later, which I simply made clear. January 6th was always a very clear government operation. Now, for those that are maybe just tuning in, have never seen the show before, recognize we will not post these things if we can't prove that. The source material is undeniable. And as always, everything we say, literally chronologically posted, every single link that we use to show you in order is down there, which you can check for yourself. The point is, guys, it's not even up for debate. It's a joke. Like, these are Azov member movements that were there with them on the record. That's him next to Jake Chansley. His name is Sergei Binyan, I believe, screaming, "Let's go into the capital," in Russian. He's Ukrainian, which certainly there's an overlap. The point is, this was an agenda. This is the Antifa guy, or rather the left-leaning group guy that was on record going, "We got him, we did it, we tricked him." It's all very easy to see. The point is, they're still pointing to that as an event that's somehow an insurgent, or rather a insurrection. And I think that was another event, just like we might be talking about today, to drive in the same direction. Again, not from a partisan perspective, guys. This is a government manipulation against you to get you as Americans to play certain roles. Now, the last two sections, I think this one's important in regard to, what was this about again? Oh, yeah. The people just gushingly leaning into this. All of a sudden, just like I told you, like it's not hard to see, this is driving support to Trump like I've never seen. A lot of them already supported Trump, but just to realize like major public endorsements because of this. And Derek says, I already see the mainstream alternative media talking heads on this platform celebrating the picture of Trump as the most epic picture ever, which is just all over the place. Surviving an assassination attempt is a great way to build up sympathy. He's right. Now, that's not Derek saying we can prove that. He's just making an observation, which people really hate when it steps on what they want to be the truth. But this person is saying this, set up by Trump to boost a staggeringly low number. Biden is the same low number group. Nobody likes them. They need to get support somehow. Martyrdom is a good way to get that. Now, I don't know if Trump has low numbers. I think at least being presented as not the other, but either way, point being, this is already driving a lot of support. Here's Bill Ackman saying, I'm going to formally endorse Donald Trump. I came to this decision some time ago, as many Twitter followers have already understood from my supportive post of Trump. The reason why I have yet formally done so is to explain my thinking and blah, blah, blah. Today, because of this, I'm siding with Trump, is the point. I don't read all of what he said. The bottom line is, large accounts, this guy, 1.3 million followers, that guarantees some of his followers are going to start supporting Trump. That's how this works. Here is Elon Musk showing the clip we showed. I fully endorse President Trump and hope for his rapid recovery, which apparently he was in the hospital for a little bit, but he's already out, as far as I understand it. Here's Alex Jones. Here's what he has to say about this. The world now needs to pray for Donald Trump.
The deep state tried to kill President Trump today.
Oh, okay. See, case closed. We all got it. Trump, Alex knows, he said, right? Deep state did it. Game over. I mean, okay, certainly. But could it be anything else? The deep state did it? What does that even mean? Like, I'm very aware of the reality behind that talking point. We've been covering this for a very long time. The reality of the shadow government or parallel entities or the supranational governments that run everything. The point is, Trump is a part of this game. And I know that's hard for a lot of people to recognize. Whether he knows it or not, by the way, are actively progressing the agendas of exactly the deep state he's pointing to. Or globalism and the things they're highlighting while ignoring the real, obvious entities that are driving the worst things in the world. But the deep state did it. They tried to kill him. I just feel like it's almost too much to just, I don't know why people lean into these ideologues and just go, well, he said it and that's the case. People are sharing this like that's gospel. Certainly a possibility. But why can't we be more objective than that and just lean into people we want to be because team sport politics? But anyway, let him continue.
They actually shot him in the side of the head.
No, they shot him in the ear.
But because our God is greater than their God, we won.
Oh, okay. So our God's better than their God. We won. Journalism. I mean, what does this have to do with that at all? Who's God? Are you talking about the deep state as if they all kind of unanimously have one God? Maybe. I'll very clearly overlap that with the idea of like this kind of like this technocracy direction, and that they are, Courtney and I were just talking about this, the idea that they are essentially becoming God themselves. Or are you talking about Zionism? That would make sense, but that's not what he's talking about. My point is, our God's better than their God will mean whatever anybody listening to this wants it to mean. Whether you're in your mind, it's the Democrats versus the Republicans, and it's our God versus their atheism and devil worship, or the idea that you're talking about China or Russia or whatever. It's very Trump-esque answer, isn't it? Right down the middle. You can read into that, or very Q if you want. Read into it however you want to read it. But how in the world are you going to make an argument that our God's better than their God, and that's why we won, from a journalistic perspective? I make this point all the time, guys. I am a Christian. I do not hide that. But in intertwining your reporting with religion, I don't respect that, because you're talking about a faith-based reality that you're intertwining with things that require evidence. Those things are those things are contradictory.
So I am humbly asking all the viewers
humbly
on X and InfoWars to pray for President Trump and pray for America. This is a spiritual battle that we're facing.
I don't even disagree with that, but you guys can watch the rest if you want. You know my opinion. I hope I'm wrong. I don't want this to be the case that people are just so deceived by these clear manipulators. But my God, I just don't know why we can't recognize that what they're doing is driving you directly into the grasp, into the jaws of the problem. I hope we can start to see that. Here, Wall Street Silver post this saying, rise and rise again until lambs become lions. You know, because it's biblical. It's prophecy. Wall Street Silver. Really? I mean, this is a little bit alarming, guys. A lot of it alarming. Censored Man highlights what Ian Miles Chong said when kind of making fun of the fact that he's not we at all. He says, we are at war. They killed one of us today. And he tweets from Malaysia. It's like, huh? We? But the point is, the way that they're framing this, and I see this guy as a clear manipulator. He says, we are in a battle for humanity. Fight. It's real. We are now in a war. This is all under Elon Musk and other people talking about Trump. I'm 1 million% behind Trump now. We are at war. Like, guys, if somebody tried to kill Trump and that's exactly what happened, that still does not immediately, this is irrationally irresponsible. You are driving people to do irrational things. We're at war with who exactly? How about we identify who's responsible before you jump conclusions and go, we're at war. They want to kill you. Who exactly? The Democrats? That's usually where this ends up. We're just going, the other part of the country is trying to kill you guys. We are being driven against each other while we're ignoring so many other things going on. He says they killed one of us today. As in the person behind them in the crowd. Who's they? What if it was Israel? Will you call that out? What if it was China? What if it was Russia? What if it was your own government? What if it was a Republican that doesn't like Trump? Who cares? Let's just make it what we want it to be before we know what's going on. Let's scream irrational platitudes that want emotionally driven. I don't know why people can't see this. I think I'd like to believe most do. I'm talking about the people that choose to be in the paradigm. And then he said this, please, please, please triple your protection, Elon Musk. If they can come for Trump, they will come for you. Oh, right, because they're both leaders of this movement, right? They're both freedom fighters screaming about free speech while they're doing the opposite. Please, Elon, triple your protection. We just talked about this. Is he not? At the same point, these people are not on your side. He says, dangerous times ahead. 2 people, separate occasions, have already tried to kill me in the past 8 months. They were arrested with guns about 20 minutes drive from Tesla headquarters. Michael Schellenberger says, that's awful. Very sorry to hear that. Glad you're okay. Very real. We're in a war. Same point. That's Ian Miles Chong. Here is Luke Rudowski. Stay safe, man. We need you. Here's Derek Brose for some logic. Okay. Oh, God. More ass kissing for the Mr. Transhumanism. SL says, it's the Mossad. Aaron Elizabeth says, praying for you and please get added protection. I hate this kind of thing. Even if I have these feelings, I don't feel the need to jump to be one of the people to say the thing underneath, like, we're behind you 100%. I may be a mean person. I just think this is silly stuff. But of course, it's all that, you know what this is about being, I want to be seen as the person going, yay, Elon, I'm with you, man. Even though you're censoring people and lying about it. Even though you're part of the Great Reset. Yeah, we're with you. All right, enough point. But then I'll add on the point of censorship. I just highlighted it. I think it's just an overlapping point. He was just on Bill Maher saying, we can't censor things we disagree with because that would be wrong. And I rightly said, what a joke. It's just so sad how many choose to fall for this overt lie while people are unquestionably being censored and suppressed on this platform. Not for breaking the law, as he pretended was the bar, or breaking the terms of service, but for simply uncomfortable truth right now, largely around Israel and their lies. But this person says, sure, it's not true free speech, but it's a lot better than it was. Oh, you gotta love that argument. And I simply posted this meme of the Aztecs going, well, may not be a perfect system, but it's sure the best one there is, as they're ripping the heart of the person's chest above them. I love that meme. Isn't that the same thing? Well, it's not exactly perfect. Well, you know what? I demand perfect, if perfect means constitutional rights. I'm not going to go, well, they kind of let you acknowledge some of your rights. It was better than it was yesterday. Maybe you're right. I still don't think it's okay. I still want to call out the person who's giving you half of what they should. I just don't know why people pander to these things. Now, lastly, the government side of this, and really just the promotion, the drive into the things. Here's Biden on the 13th, not wasting any time. I want to ban assault weapons and require universal background checks. Trump promised the NRA that he'd do nothing about guns, and he means it. Now, as far as I understand it, this is before that happened. Weirdly timed, is it not? Here's Trump back in 2023, just in case you forgot before we jump to conclusions about who's going to take your guns away.
President Trump stunned lawmakers on both sides of the aisle Wednesday with his overarching demands for gun control.
I take the firearms first and then go to court.
After Vice President Mike...
Yeah, right? Take the guns, and then we'll deal with the court stuff later. We'll deal with the constitutional rights after we get what we want. Freedom, though. Second Amendment, Trump.
Pence suggested court procedures for removing guns from dangerous people. Trump caught him and many in the room off guard by seeming to dismiss due process.
I like taking the guns early, so you could do exactly what you're saying, but take the guns first, go through due process second.
Oh, yeah, we'll just due process. We'll deal with that pesky little thing after the fact, after we take your guns without any legal restriction. I mean, my God. Yeah, and a lot of us called it out then. And of course, it got dismissed as misunderstanding or misrepresented, which it really was not. It's obvious what he said. Now, another point. Here's the Persian Jewess highlighting, remember, and yes, this is related to what's going on with Trump, that you have a lot of an Israel overlap right now trying to use this for their purposes, which we should be asking whether they might be involved. Says Bobby Kennedy was assassinated by 24-year-old Palestinian terrorist Saran Saran, which make sure you understand that is not the reality, when he was running for president in 1968. That's Bobby Kennedy. The Palestinian terrorist allegedly targeted RFK in retaliation for his support of Israel. Or there's a lot more to the story involving Israel being upset that the Kennedys were seeking to expose the Israeli Dimona nuclear laboratory, as well as to force AIPAC to register as a foreign agent. JFK was shot, putting an end to it, followed by Bobby, or that. Now, of course, it didn't show the image. I wanted to show you just in case you didn't see that interview with Corey Hughes, where we talk about it, entitled, Was JFK Assassinated by Israel? Or was Israel behind the assassination of JFK? I just think that image is funny. It's a good interview. It's important. It's contentious. Point being, putting this out after that happened, kind of going, reminder, Palestinian boogeymen probably were responsible because Trump supports Israel. That's what she's doing. A lot of facts there, huh? In fact, no facts at all. Bunch of narratives and lies. But here's what Max Blumenthal said on Fox News just now. This was yesterday, not even today. It was the day this was happening. Former NYPD Inspector Paul Murrow just suggested campus Palestinian activism was responsible for the assassination attempt on Trump and called for a federal investigation into student activism against Israel's genocide. He then warned against conspiracy theories, which is like literally what you're doing. The bottom line is we've already verifiably shown that if a very large portion of these protests are Jewish, led by Jewish organizations, that they just call self-hating Jews or whatever. Zionists, I mean. The point is that we've seen Holocaust survivors, and they've lied top to bottom about every one of these. And now you're just shooting. I guarantee somebody pushed him to do that. There's no logical reason to connect those things. Somebody pushed him to make that statement. That's my opinion. And then here's Netanyahu. Couldn't help himself. Guess what? He doesn't just go, I'm sorry, Trump, that's a bad thing. He says, we're all here this is about all of us. Right? It's an attack on all of us together. I just find that ridiculous. I don't know if they recognize it, or rather specifically Netanyahu recognizes his ridiculous hubris, or the idea that you're talking about an attack on somebody and you're trying to put on a video to show solidarity, and your point is it's all of us. We have what's attack on us too. It's just funny to me. You get what I'm saying? Like, it's the wrong stance to take when you're trying to make it look as if you're showing solidarity. The point is he's trying to make it about Israel's thing too. And I think there might be more to this than we realize.
Call Israelis. My wife Sarah and I were shocked by the horrific assassination attempt on the life of President Donald Trump. This wasn't just an attack on Donald Trump. This was an attack on a candidate for the presidency of the United States. This was an attack on America. It was an attack on democracy. It was an attack on all the democracies.
Right, so it's not just your thing, it's our thing. It's all of our thing.
On behalf of myself, my family, the government and people of Israel, we wish President Trump a speedy recovery, continued good health, and continued strength.
All right, so attacking a guy who carried out Operation Warp Speed, unconstitutionally forced a lot of shots on people despite all the narratives around that, and Biden did the same. And the point is, that's an attack on democracy. You know, the same democracy that both sides accuse of cheating every single time, or the same democracy that completely ignores every single actual right or every single law, or international or otherwise. Democracy, right? But an attack on one of these dictators is an attack on democracy. That's what he's saying. Why? Because they're all upholding this narrative about rules-based international order, as they're all some of the worst people on the planet. Here is the president of Israel. He says, I'm shocked by the shooting at the 45th president of the United States, Trump. I pray for his speedy recovery. Violence can never be a part of politics. Right. Kill 16,000 children, but violence can never be an answer, right? I mean, that's just what they're supposed to say. You're literally you're like politically acting to murder an entire entity, an entire civilization for your own political agenda. But, violence can never be the answer. Unless it's us and the people we hate, though, It's a platitude. It's what they're supposed to say. It's embarrassing. Now, here's what Biden said. I'll play it first.
I have tried to get a hold of Donald. He's with his doctors. Apparently, he's doing well. I plan on talking to them shortly, I hope, when I get back to the telephone. Look, there's no place in America for this kind of violence. It's sick. It's sick. It's one of the reasons why we have to unite this country. We cannot allow for this to be happening. We cannot be like this. We cannot condone this. And I want to thank the Secret Service and all the agencies, including the state agencies, that have been engaged in making sure that people and we have more detail to come relative to other people maybe injured in the audience. I don't have all that detail. We'll make that available to you. I may be able to come back a little later tonight, but we'll put out a statement if I'm not able to if it's not convenient for you all. But the bottom line is that the Trump rally was a rally that he should have been able to be conducted peacefully without any problem. But the idea that there's political violence or violence in America like this is just unheard of. It's just not appropriate. And everybody must condemn it. Everybody. I'll keep you informed, and if I'm able to speak to Donald, I'll let you know that as well. So far, it appears he's doing well, number one. Number two, that they're thoroughly investigating what happened to anyone else in the audience. We have some reports, but not final reports. And every agency in the federal government, I'm going back to my phone to speak with the federal agencies that are being put together again to give me an updated briefing. Has anything happened? They learned any more in the last couple hours. So thank you very much, and I hope I get to speak to them tonight, and I'll get back to you if I do.
And Halal Flow says, Biden can apparently condemn a violent attack. There's no place in America for this kind of violence. It's sick. It would be great if he could have done the same on the violent al-Mawasi safe zone attack. 96 Palestinians were killed, which Israel and Netanyahu bragged about today. That's what I talked about yesterday, in between the other stuff. But not a word about that, or the innumerable amount of other atrocities that have happened in the last 9+ months. No issue about that, though, right? Here, the Cradle highlights Israel jets bombard Syria. That's over from yesterday into today. Bombing Damascus. Israel is bombing Damascus in civilian neighborhoods now. which is not new. It's been going on for a very long time. But now you're just drawing it. You're bombing another location while pretending you're being attacked. Syria's not bombing you. They're not attacking you, but you're bombing Syria because clearly this is not about you being the victim. But of course, no room for political violence in our democracy, Netanyahu says. These people are a laughing stock. They're jokes. Tiberius highlights. News. U.S. bomb kills 20,000 Palestinians. U.S. bombs. Obama? Nothing. News. The figure is now 40,000, half of them children. Obama? Nothing. News. Children, limbs, jaws, heads are being blown off with U.S. munitions live to the world. Obama? Nothing. News. Almost 200,000 now feared dead. Obama? Nothing. News. Trump shot in the ear. Obama? There's absolutely no place for political violence in our democracy. Although we don't yet know exactly what happened, we should all be relieved that former Trump wasn't seriously hurt and use this moment to recommit ourselves to civility and respect in our politics. Michelle and I, you get the point. Funny how you only care when it has to do with your elitist weaponized or parasite class, whatever you want to call them, which they're all a part of. All of them laughing and yucking it up at their secret parties that we can see plenty of images of it. The point, clearly, if there's no place for political violence in our democracy, then why exactly are you in particular carrying this out about inside this country, but also people abroad? That's part of this democracy, the actions you carry out around the world, but also the fact that you carried out, in particular, a lot of really damning things in this country, some of the NDAAs for locking up Americans indefinitely without detention. I mean, all sorts of things. No place, though, because you're going after one of us. That's the point. And he also says, the same point we made before, that he's one of the people that's called Trump like the biggest threat to our democracy. But thank God he's okay, though. Really makes sense, doesn't it? Vanessa Beeley highlights, and this is in regard to what's going on in Israel in general, though. She says, I repeat, a vote for Trump is a vote for Zionist genocide of Palestinians. But so too is Biden. So too is RFK. She's just making a point. She highlights this. After 52 years, it is time for the United States to fully recognize Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights. That entirely illegal, unjust action. In fact, just to be clear, in case you don't know that, the U.S. president or the U.S. government has no legal jurisdiction to do that. Nobody cared. Trump recognizes Jerusalem as Israel's capital. Same point. Do not have the legal right to do so. This is unlike the white leftists that receive endless praise from AOR stands for holding up cardboard placards and resisting frappuccinos. She says Jackson Hinkle is solidly anti-Zionist and anti-globalist. And she's saying that in response to Marwa Oswan, who says, you see what I mean? Only a hypocrite would endorse a terrorist. That's Jackson Hinkle going, God was looking out for America and President Trump today. Oh, you mean the same guy that you 30 seconds ago were saying is destroying, But look, the point is that these people are openly supporting Israel's genocide. Jackson Hinkle has been presenting himself as a resistant aspect of that, pushing back against it, saying, you're committing genocide, and a lot of people have highlighted it as sort of a manipulation. I don't know, you can decide for yourselves. And of course, flirting with that line to make it all Jews, because I think that's a trap. And clearly Marwa does too, saying, she says, shake my head, and you trust him by the thousands. Shame on all of you, especially the Shias who witnessed this terrorist assassinate Soleimani. That's Trump. Do not forget and celebrate this Hinkle hypocrite for posting a photo of al-Khamenei like a week or two. And the point is, this person responded simply going, he's more than that, and he's better. And the point is it's a very clearly partisan thing, talking about, the people with their placards in front of frappuccinos. And the point is clearly it's wildly hypocritical to be like, yay, Trump is okay, while you're literally calling out the other things that there is a part of. Like, you can clearly go, I'm glad as a human being that he's not killed, but I find it really odd. God was looking out for America. That seems contradictory to what other things he is saying. That's my personal opinion. But she said again, I repeat, a vote for him is a vote for genocide. But apparently Hinkle is okay being contradictory there. Vanessa Beeley highlights to finish the show in general. While everyone obsesses about Trump's ear being hit, the relentless bombardment on the northern part of Gaza City and the genocide continues. This is today, mind you. This continues. They're literally relentlessly bombing civilian locations. They're not even narratives flying around anymore. This is just massacre after massacre right now. And now they've got plenty of people looking somewhere else. Maybe that was the point. I highly doubt that's the only point, but something to consider. This is what's going on. Children being bombed every day. Rami Abdul from Euromed Human Rights Group says, breaking: Israel bombed another, this is today, another United Nations school, sheltering displaced people in Al-Nusrat. It's like they go back and forth. How many times have they bombed schools and buildings in Al-Nusrat, the place they keep saying is secure, or the place they alternatively tell them to go for the safe area? It's just so disgusting how obvious this is. Our teams have documented the victims, all of whom are civilians, vast majority being children and women, the vast majority. You're not going to even hear a peep about this because the media cycle is consumed with Donald Trump. Whitney says, sometimes the people who think they're the most awake are the most psyopable as a psychological operation. I agree. That doesn't mean that they might not be awake in some cases. The point is the people that are convinced that they're like, this is what I always said about the QAnon point or Russiagate, which I think are kind of two legs of the same agenda personally, is that you wake up to a degree, you see the bigger issue, and you turn around and you take a step into a minefield. And there's people like us over here going, don't pick something, just keep that openness going. Keep that objectivity going. Don't pick a new side. Keep moving and question everything. And usually they get pulled into a new trap, which was Q. And they're like, we see everything. We now see the truth. And then they're being manipulated by the next step at the agenda. That's how this works. And that's the point, is people are convinced one step away from the controlled idea that they're now part of the awakening. They see everything. And they're just barely away from the original lie. That's easy to manipulate people to think they're completely awake when in reality, they barely see anything. And you could argue that's us for all we know. Certainly possible. The point is to try to recognize it could always be you. Be objective. Question everything. No, this was just the last. I do want to include that in the show notes. So I personally think that this is a pretty good overview of the stuff we currently have in front of us, right? There's a lot of information. And I guarantee you, as we were talking, there's probably been 15 new things that have popped up. But at this point in time, I think it's very obvious that largely the partisan media, they clearly, as they do every time, have shown themselves to be irresponsible, dishonest, don't care. And that's not everybody. There's people that are even in the partisan media that clearly are acting objectively, but I argue just, in my opinion, being partisan tends to drive you to omit certain things you don't like because it hurts your side. But either way, my point is that what we've seen from the ones that I usually highlight, that they're being dishonest, guys, that they're sharing things, they're lying, if not purposely, which is muddying the field, which is causing this to be easily manipulated. So just as always, as you all here do, show discernment. Be very skeptical of what we're saying, of what they're saying, of what everybody's saying. Try to gather the information and show a measured approach and come to your own conclusions. It's very important. And I think overall what we can see is there's undeniable anomalies here. There's the one I keep coming back to is how in the world he was shot unless there was a second shooter while his head was turned, or why was the sniper set up there not able to see what was happening when clearly they would have, or the people that were searching for them that were told by multiple people to do something about it didn't, or the guy that walked up and then came back down and let it happen, or the inconsistency of the shots of when they say that they were shot over here versus when they say they saw him shot over here. Something's being lied about. I personally think that's undeniable at this point. But again, newer things could come up that we can verify that might fill those gaps, and we should be okay with that. So let's be objective and wait to see more come out. But I think right now it's undeniable that there is something going on here. And either way, this will be used. It will be used by everybody to achieve what they want from it. Keep that in mind. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for remaining objective, questioning this information, because I'm telling you guys, they are desperate to drive you to choose a side. Drive you to pick what narrative you like from within their chosen and controlled narratives. What we do, ending on a show right now where we're saying, we don't know yet, we're still figuring it out, is honestly what they're most afraid of. Making sure that people retain their objectivity is something they're desperately trying to hide or remove or attack everywhere. And you know it. You feel it. It's all across the conversation. So thank you for remaining objective and continuing to stand up and, change people's minds. It's having an effect. I feel it. And that's why we're being attacked. That's why everybody in this position that is actually doing this is constantly being suppressed and attacked and censored, not in some halfway that actually drives up their numbers, but in a legitimate way that most people don't even see. So thank you for tuning in. And if you'd like to support us as it's happening, there's lots of ways to do so. And beneath the videos, the show notes. There's lots of platforms you could support us on. There's Stripe on the website, our objective reporting program that we have on autonomy. That's all down below as well. You know, it's a little. The point is that it's an important course to take for, you know, trying to train your mind to maintain objectivity, which is more difficult than people realize. But either way, whatever you want to do, however you support us, we appreciate it. It means the world. Thank you for being here. As always, question everything. Come to your own conclusions. Stay vigilant.